Solomon, do you see anybody?
If you want to speak, you need to raise your hand.
There's no one so far, and no one mentioned earlier. So,
all right, then we will move to closed session and resume at approximately 6:20 p.m. See you all over there.
All right. See you there.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. This is Abigail, the interpreter.
Hi, Abby. They just went into closed session.
Okay, I figured. And so are we streaming the session onto Zoom and then I'm interpreting, or how are we doing this?
I'm not sure. It is being fed to our live YouTube feed, but I'm not sure how the interpretation is going to go.
Yeah, 'cause I think, I can ask Solomon when he gets back, but in the past, the way we've done it with some other Innovate communities is usually, I think they use some school board meetings use WebEx. So I would just log into the WebEx and hear the meeting and interpret simultaneously, but I don't know how it's going to go here.
Okay, let's wait till Solomon comes back. I'm sure he knows.
Okay.
Thanks, Abby.
Yeah.
okay, I heard a little bit. Sorry, I was getting closed session. What was the question? You're Abigail? Hi, nice to
Yeah,
meet
I'm Abby. Hi, Solomon. We've met a few times before on the task force and whatnot. Yeah, so how are we putting the channels on here, or how are we doing it here?
Are you're the only interpreter?
Yes.
Okay, so give me 1 second, okay?
Yeah.
I'm gonna... Okay. Yeah, I think the tricky part is you're going to be expected to do English to Spanish, obviously.
At the
And
same
so
time.
we have a Spanish channel that I think you're already logged into.
No, you have to enable the feature.
Yeah,
on-
I did. It is enabled. Did you? And the fact that you could speak. Give me a second.
You have to turn it on the actual meeting, because I know you enable it when you set it up.
No, it's enabled. It's just you must have logged in on a different email than that info.
No, this is the one I logged in from.
What's it? What email address? What Zoom account did you use?
It's at info@newvoiceinterpreting.com.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, I don't see the interpretation feature down here. Tony, do you see the feature down on yours?
No, I can fix it. I see what's going on.
Yeah, it's just I don't think it's been turned on yet.
Yeah. It says you have not joined. That's the weird part. I'll start it.
That's weird. Yeah. So, yeah, and then you just have to assign me.
Yeah, you were pre-assigned.
Yeah, it does that. It does that, but then once you get into the Zoom, you have to assign me again, which is like the weird thing about Zoom.
Yeah, I've never done that before. No, I mean, we do this
often.
I do this every couple days.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
Maybe I have the wrong email address. Okay, the tricky part. So I was asked to do 2 channels.
Yeah.
English to Spanish and Spanish to English.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think I have to change you. Let's see.
No, you just assign me, because I can click back and forth from channels.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see. Yeah. Have you done that? See, this part we have not done before. Have one person do two.
Yeah, no, it's not a problem. I just have to, when I'm interpreting from English into Spanish,
Mhm.
in the Spanish channel.
Mhm.
And then if there's someone that needs to speak from, the Spanish channel, I just switch into the English channel. The
Mhm.
only thing is everybody needs to be in a channel, otherwise they're not going to be able to hear me.
Mhm. Yeah, so right now you are in the English channel.
Right now, I'm not in any channel. I'm waiting for you to assign me as the interpreter.
That's what's weird. Okay, give me a second. Lord, Lord.
Here, I'm going to leave the meeting and I'll rejoin.
Okay.
Stop it.
Oh, there you are. There you are. Takes a while for you to show up. That's kind of weird.
There we go.
Okay. Think. So you think you're set up now, Abigail? I'm listening to the wrong channel. Yeah. Yeah. So the board hasn't, yeah, we're gonna need to let the board know that. Mhm. Okay. I'll type in English and then you could send it in Spanish. Okay, so it says, what does it say again if you're using the app? And it's at the bottom usually on the app? Yeah, I can find it. Not yet. Language interpretation. Yeah, I did. Did you see what I wrote? Okay. I'm going dark for a minute. Oh,
Hi, Abby.
are they out of closed session already, Gina?
Yeah, we'll be starting on time.
Oh, can't hear you, Gina.
Testing. Can you hear me?
So, because of the translation, Gina, people are going to have to choose an English or Spanish channel tonight.
Will our trustees be able to do that as well? So I click on the interpretation and click English.
Okay, so now you're in English. Let's see.
Trustees, this is an interpreter that we've been working with over the summer, Abby.
Hi.
Hi, Abby. I keep
We
forgetting to
can't hear you,
unmute
Abby.
myself.
Yes, so if click on interpretation and choose English, you will be able to hear her.
Yeah, go to the bottom of your screen and choose English.
Oh, wow, that's really cool. Wait. So Trustee Fitch, if she's going to be interpreting while it's happening, but not outwardly, then it would only be 2 minutes. Does that make sense?
Wait, sorry, your voice was quiet for a moment.
So I believe she's translating through like the chat. Is it?
No, she's going to be translating in real time on the Spanish channel most of the time, or alternately the English channel if someone is speaking in Spanish.
But how is she translating out? How is that message getting out?
Oh, we can hear her. It'll be oral, and she understands how to change between the two channels. But
Okay, so we can't hear her as a board, but everybody else can.
no,
Choose Spanish.
yeah, what we want all the board members to do now is choose the English channel
Okay.
at the bottom of the screen.
I think I'm on the English.
Under interpretation, there's an interpretation button.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Yes,
Oh.
we can hear you.
So how will you do it when speakers are speaking and they're speaking in Spanish and you have to speak? So do you get, Trustee Fitch, that I think this is why we're only going to need 2 minutes because it's happening simultaneously, but without interruption.
Okay, so 2 minutes no matter what the speaker is speaking.
Yeah, because there's no interruption. There's no pausing and having to wait for the person to translate. It's happening simultaneously.
Got it.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay, so I am going to officially, is Trustee Owen not on? Oh, there she, okay, there she goes, yes. So we are returning to open session at 6:22 p.m. For closed session, item 3A was approved 5-0. So that is a report from closed session. And we are going to move to the approval of minutes. But before we do want to let everybody know that we have an interpreter, and you're able to select your preferred language by going to the bottom of the screen and clicking on the icon that says interpretation. And there you can select English or Spanish. So it doesn't matter if there's an English or Spanish speaker, if you click the appropriate channel, you'll be able to understand everything that anyone says at any given time. For that reason, if speakers speak in Spanish, we're only going to be giving them 2 minutes because the interpretation will be happening simultaneously rather than the traditional 4 minutes. Because normally we have to stop for interpretation to occur, but in this case, we don't have to. So the other thing to know is that if anybody wants to speak on an item, please raise your hand. And Solomon will let us know if there are any speakers. Trustee Fitch will be showing you the time on the screen. She will share her screen and she will allocate 2 minutes. And when your 2 minutes are up, your time will be up. So we just want to let everybody know about that. So I think that is the only things that we need to review before we start. So that will take us to item 5A, and that is the consideration to approve the minutes of June 25th. Are there any questions or feedback from the board on these minutes? Okay, there are none. Solomon, I don't believe there are any speakers. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Sorry, there is someone who has had their hand raised the whole time. I'm not sure which item they plan to speak on.
So only raise your hand if we're asking for speakers for that given item. So right now we're in item 5A. So if you're raising your hand, that means you want to speak about the meeting minutes of June 25th.
That's correct, and that's Galaxy J7 Star.
Okay.
They still have their hand up, so I'm going to allow them to talk. Galaxy J7 Star, did you want to speak on this item? Okay, maybe they, okay, nope. Going once? Okay, I'm going to lower their hand and mute them.
So I will then entertain a motion from the board to approve these minutes.
To the chair,
Yes.
am I on mute?
No,
No.
I can hear you.
I keep forgetting. I'll make a motion that we approve of the minutes of June 25th.
I second it.
Okay, roll call, please.
President Polito,
Aye.
Vice President Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Fitch,
Aye.
Trustee Guyona,
Aye.
Trustee Shabomaheen.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. We will move to item 5B, consideration to approve the minutes of July 7th special board meeting. Are there any questions or comments or speakers for this item? Okay, if there are none, I will entertain a motion to approve these meeting minutes.
Through Chair,
Yes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of July 7th.
A second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
President Polito,
Aye.
Vice President Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Fitch,
Aye.
Trustee Guyona,
Aye.
Trustee Shabomaheen.
Aye.
Right, so now we're moving on to the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
To the chair, if there aren't anyway, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as listed. Am I on mute?
No, we can hear you.
I second.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Gaona. Roll call, please.
President Polito,
Aye.
Vice President Wilson. Sorry, you're muted, Trustee Wilson.
See, aye.
Trustee Fitch,
Aye.
Trustee Guyona,
Aye.
Trustee Shabomaheen.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 5-0. That will take us to item 7A, consideration to approve the job description for strategic projects coordinator.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. This item is for a new creation of a position, Strategic Project Coordinator. If there are questions, I'm happy to answer those.
So just through the chair.
Yes.
So just a quick question. So this is a 1-year position? Or will it eventually stay?
This is a position we anticipate someone filling for 6 months.
Oh, right, that's what I mean. So it's not a permanent position? No.
Well, in California, we only can hire under the ed code. So if the person chose to remain employed and did not resign, if they were not released during their probationary period, then they would be a permanent employee.
Through Chair,
Yes.
so this position is not temporarily. It wasn't listed as temporarily, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so then it is not only for 6 months, it's for as long.
It's similar to how we brought on board the school coordinator of moves. And so we are looking for someone to fill it as a temporary role, but there is that possibility.
But that kind of leaves us in a weird space of not knowing what we're really approving. Are we approving a temporary position or a permanent position? Because I think that would impact how people choose to vote.
The budget.
Right.
Right. So it is in the position, in the position description, it is a 12-month position. And then if it were to stay up for the entire year, then we would have to go through the reduction of staff process.
Do you anticipate this only being for a year, or do you anticipate us needing this beyond the year?
For the year, only for the year.
So is there a reason why we didn't post it as a temp position?
Yes, Tony can explain.
Sure, legally, we can't post just random positions as temporary. There has to be very specific parameters that are followed. And in this case, this job description would not qualify as a temporary position under California Ed Code.
Do you, Through Chair,
Yes.
Do you have the ed code? Because this is the first time I hear that a district cannot post a position as temporarily in some
Sure.
time.
I will share that with you. Give me one moment.
Trustee Gana Mendoza, I think to Tony Stone's point, we can do temp positions, but I think what she was saying is that this type of position doesn't qualify for a temp.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there must be an ed code that explains what kind of positions, but
Right.
positions do not qualify. So it's important for me to learn. So I don't have to ask the questions again at another time.
Okay.
I believe the ed code number is 44918.
4,
Nine.
918.
that's it. Okay.
Does anyone have any questions about this?
What is the salary? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
The salary is range 4 and it's listed
Oh, yeah, I have it.
77,317 up to 94,322.
And it's funded by the,
Ravenswood Education Foundation.
great, thank you.
And is this an internal person that got moved to this position, or is this somebody that came new to the district?
This position, I believe, would be filled by an outside candidate.
Okay, because I'm just thinking like if they moved into it thinking, I don't know, it could extend further. So, okay. So
We would be, and Will could probably speak to this a little bit more, but we would be looking for somebody who understands the short-term piece of it. I mean, and obviously understanding our obligation, but of their mutual interest of only making it be a 6-month position as well.
got it.
This is something that we did in my prior district somewhat frequently, where we would hire someone for a short-term position. Sorry, that's my 6-month-old daughter. So we're only looking on bringing someone on board for 6 months, then they would return to their prior job. So there's no intention on our part or the candidate's part. We have several people interested to stay on past 6 months. So as I understand it, we can't legally say that, but there's no intention to have them stay on longer, nor do we have funding for that from REF. So the position will be a 6-month or less position. I don't know if that, I hope I got that right, Tony and Gina, just following
Well,
that code.
To reiterate, Tony, though, we would be obligated. So if the person we employ decides to change their mind, we are obligated to keep them on board for a year. But similarly to how we employed and worked out our school coordinator of moves, we're looking to hire on an employee who has the same interest of making this short term.
Through share.
Yes.
It was my understanding when you hired the coordinator of moves that it was specified, and I don't have it in front of me, for 1 year only.
I said 12 months as well.
Months. And it could extend? Is that what you mean? Could that one be extended to?
If we don't have the funding to continue the position, we would have to go through the reduction process of staff.
But the coordinator of school moves, I think, is what Ms. Gaona is speaking of.
Yeah.
That individual has already resigned.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm just trying to see if there is like the coordinator of moves, we're not gonna need anybody, hopefully we don't have to keep saying, hopefully, but this other position could be a reason that we need it later on, more than the 6 months.
There could be potentially, I mean, if we want to look at somebody who has the skill sets to support other departments,
Yep.
That's a possibility.
I understand.
Right now, it's narrowed in for business office.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Are there
So
any?
I'm sorry, through the chair, yeah, I do have one more question. So while I understand that the position is a year position, will the contract that we contract with the person be a 6-month contract? No, has to be okay.
Okay, if there's no other questions or speakers, I will entertain a motion to approve this item, which is item 7A.
Through the chair,
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve item 7A, this job description for strategic projects coordinator.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
President Polito,
Aye.
Vice President Wilson,
Aye.
Trustee Fitch,
Aye.
Trustee Guyona,
No, and the reason is because I'm hesitant about the, if it's temporary or not. Thank you.
Trustee Shibomihin,
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 4-1 with Trustee Gona Mendoza voting against. We will now move to item 8A, and that is the approval of the contract between Ravenswood City School District and the primary school for the lease of the Brentwood school site.
Yes, and Jim Leonides will help us present on both of these items. And Jim has been an instrumental force in helping us move our business office along as an interim CDO part-time, and has helped watch this, monitor this process from closing and merging our schools to Brentwood becoming a surplus property to now potentially allowing the district to stand on its own 2 feet with some revenue coming in. So Jim, thank you so much. And if you could please present.
When I began to write up the background for this the other day, I began to realize there's quite a history to this whole process. And this actually began last fall when the board was beginning to consider the situation around school closures. And then, of course, you guys are all very familiar with that process that the district undertook at that time. And in early January, the board took the decision to close Willow Oaks and Brentwood, assign KIP over to Willow Oaks, and begin the process of declaring Brentwood surplus, which involved forming the 7-Eleven committee, which had a series of meetings and presented a report to the board in March that supported the recommendation to declare the site surplus, and also came up with a list of appropriate uses for the site relating around continued school use, senior housing, nonprofits, recreational use. And that's, of course, is guidance for the board. But the board certainly took that to heart, and we began the process of beginning to look at who would be the best tenant of that site. At the same time, the board authorized the superintendent to begin the process of filing the waiver with the state. So that was approved by the board in March. The waiver was filed in April. And to give you a sense of just how tight the timing has been with this whole process, this waiver was actually approved a week ago. And so, I mean, this has really been an amazing process to go through in terms of the sequence and everything having to meet its target in terms of time. So the board also authorized that we proceed with an RFP process. There were 3 proposals submitted. There was a process to evaluate the proposals, and finally direction was given to proceed to negotiate with the primary school to see if we can conclude a lease, and that this lease is before you this evening. Some of the main points of this lease are that it's a 10-year lease. There's no guarantee of renewal. However, there is language in there relating to incentives if an early renewal is granted, and also the timeline to when the primary school would be informed of whether the lease would be renewed or not. If it's done by the 7th year, then the lease would expire by the end of year 10. If that decision was put out to the beginning of the 8th year, then they would have 1 additional year. In other words, to have a 3-year period of time to transition if that's what is a decision made at that time. The rent will start off at $1,307,743, and we'll have a 2% escalation yearly. In addition, the primary school will make a $1 million unrestricted donation to the district that would be paid in 3 equal installments of $333,000 each year. And the Board of Trustees shall designate how these monies will be utilized. And also the district and primary school will explore collaboration opportunities shortly, and with the goal of developing a memorandum of understanding regarding areas of mutual interest, such as socio-emotional learning, parent ed, health integration, mental health. There's a process for them to share the adjacent field with Los Robles during the school time. And also, I think another key point that was negotiated is that the district's current excess capacity was calculated from a K-5 perspective and a 6-8 perspective. And if during the 10 years, if at any point in time, either K-5 capacity was reached or exceeded, or 6-8, that there's up to a $500,000 reimbursement for the cost of installing portables to handle the excess population of students. The primary school is responsible for all utilities and maintenance at the site, and with district approval, they can make structural improvements to the site as well. The district has been in communication with the city of East Palo Alto regarding this, and the agreement as one of the exhibits has a letter from the city regarding the primary school's occupancy of the site. I think we seem to be in good shape there with this. And it's been a lot of work, but it's been a great spirit working with the primary school and trying to problem solve. Certainly the board has been actively involved in this process as well. And I think all of us together, I think, have really concluded an agreement that meets the interests of the district, provides much needed revenue, provides space for the primary school and opportunities for collaboration and further cooperation in the future. So it's being presented to you with a recommendation for approval.
Thank you, Jim, for that summary. And as you noted, we've been working on this for some time, so we know how much work you put into this. So thank you again. I would love to give the board an opportunity to say any comments or maybe ask any questions that are lingering, even though I know we've had several conversations already. All right, it seems like we don't. Do we have any speakers?
Yeah, we had someone who raised their hand, but they put it back down. Maria.
Okay, so we have no speakers. All right. Well, I'm happy we're at this point. We all knew that it was very important for us to rent out Brentwood, and I feel like, you know, we came up with something that was mutually beneficial to both parties, and it established a partnership that was meaningful beyond a contract of leasing. So I was happy with that outcome. And if there are no comments, I will entertain a motion to approve this item, which is item 8A.
Through the chair,
Yes.
I would like to make that motion if there aren't any other questions, that we approve of the contract between the Ravenswood City School District and the primary school for the lease of Brentwood site.
I'll second.
Roll call, please. We can't hear you, Superintendent Sedalia.
President Polito,
Aye.
Vice President Wilson,
Aye.
Trustee Fitch,
Aye.
Trustee Guyona. I'm sorry, you're muted, Trustee Guyona.
Is that an aye? Thumbs
Yeah,
up?
that was an aye. So that was a thumbs
Aye.
up.
Okay.
Trustee Shabal
Aye.
All right, motion carries 5-0. Let's move on to item 8B, and it's the Fourth Amendment to the property lease that's actually also on Brentwood site to the primary school.
Yeah, actually, last January, you approved the third amendment to this lease. And I think if you all remember, the big item in that third amendment was the district beginning to collect a portion of the rent on the portables that the primary school had installed. That was sort of the big part of that amendment there. This fourth amendment is basically around the fact that the primary school will continue to rent out the site through the school year, with the exception of giving back one classroom of the number of them that they have rented. So there'd be a slight reduction of rent from what was anticipated in the third amendment for this coming year. And so with this fourth amendment, the district would be collecting $15,905 a month through the year. And this is in addition to the rent it will be collecting on Brentwood. I think the one thing to understand though too is that this will prompt the district, and I think certainly will have the opportunity to look more into it, but very likely the site will be empty by next July. So I think that it gives an opportunity for the district to begin to think about what it wants to utilize that site for. The good news is I think we may have anticipated that the site would have been empty now if the primary school was going to transition over to the main Brentwood site. But I think mainly because of their need to maintain preschool, which involves a very difficult licensing process and lengthy licensing process, they have a continued need to the site where they have the license. And I think they're just anticipating a much slower transition to be completely over to the Brentwood site. So I think it's good news for the district to continue to collect good revenue on that site. And it gives the district time to really think through the future of that site and what would be the best use for the district beginning in July of 2021.
Thank you. Jim, are there any questions or comments from the board for this item?
Yeah, I do have a question through the chair. Am I on mute? No.
No, you're not.
Do we have access to this classroom then, since they won't be using it?
I would imagine we would. Gina, you're probably more familiar with the site than I am. Would we have access through the back door of it? Or, I mean, do we have to go through the middle of their site to make use of it?
We would have to go through the middle of the site.
Oh,
If nothing else, it could be storage.
I was going to say, but we could use it for storage. Yeah. Okay.
I'll double check though. I'll double check with the primary school.
All right, anyone else? No? Okay.
No one's raised their hand.
Do we have any speakers?
No.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion to approve item 8B.
To share,
Yes.
I make a motion to approve item AB, the contract with the primary school.
I'll second.
All right, roll call, please.
President Polito,
Aye.
Vice President Wilson.
Aye. Oh, am I muted? No.
Yes, you're good. Trustee Fitch,
Aye.
Trustee Guyona,
Aye.
Trustee Shabomaheen. Trustee Shabomaheen.
Aye, sorry, I was muted. Aye.
Yeah, okay.
All right, motion carries 5-0. We're moving right along. Let's.
Thank you, Jim.
Yes.
Okay,
very
thank
much,
you.
Jim.
I don't
And
know
the
when
board.
we'll be speaking in front of the board again. And I just want to
Right.
say it's been a pleasure this past year working with you all. And I wish you much success in moving the district forward and the continued movement that you're making. So thank you for making me part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for all of your help. I'm sorry, through the chair. So thank you so much for all of your help and all your expertise. It's really good having you work with the district. I mean, we were working together before in your other role, but really making you part of the team has been very rewarding. And I hope that you've gained something out of it as well, not just us, because we certainly have benefited. So thank you.
I've felt a personal satisfaction helping.
Good.
Thank you again.
Thank
And
you.
congratulations to the board and the superintendent as well. This was a very big lift for us, and it started since last year when we had to make difficult decisions. And we had a small window to make it happen, but I think all of our investments into wanting the best for Ravenswood and moving it forward got us to where we are today. So just want to kind of acknowledge that. And although the work is not done and it's far from it, at least we're one closer. Okay, let's move on to item 9A, the reopening school task force report.
Yes, and I'll wait until Solomon helps us. Solomon, do you mind sharing the slide? Perfect. So staff will present to you the reopening schools task force update. And go ahead, Solomon. Our agenda for this evening is to update the trustees, update you all on our recommendation for the start of school, preview the recovery plan, and then allow the board to have discussion and give direction on next steps. Okay. So you've seen this information before and it's been noted in context already. But I want to just emphasize that we are focusing more so on the health and safety of our students. It's a critical factor and kind of sets the stage in determining how to move forward with the model that we're going to present in the fall. Our team, the task force that has been responsible for the development of the recovery plan, has always stood steadfast in the 3 priorities and have had to outweigh the trade-offs, but focusing on the 3 priorities of health and safety, student learning and development, and community focus, while at the same time ensuring that they're aligned to our core values. Go ahead, Solomon. So the county's pandemic recovery assumes that before reopening, we will control COVID spread locally. And as you can see here, unlike earlier in June, when we had flattened the curve, cases are increasing in the San Mateo County. And obviously, as you've heard and seen, across the state. So you notice EPA in particular has been significantly impacted, and we tend to have a higher tolerance to the effects of, a lower tolerance to the effects of COVID, as our Black and Brown population have a higher increase in positive cases. So you notice here, speaking to the first point, that the daily number of new cases in the community is to flat or decrease. And that is not happening in terms of one of the main guidelines for reopening school. And in particular, the city of East Palo Alto has 329 cases in comparison to some other cities in the county. And we have lower population of students. So per 10,000, it's a higher rate.
Hi, I'm Cindy Chen, the Director of Student Services. I want to speak on the data that Superintendent Daria mentioned has also now kind of impacted the way our families and teachers feel about returning to campus, because obviously we're very torn. We want to be on campus, but there's a lot of concerns about health and safety. And we had done a survey of our families in early June, checking in with them about how they were feeling about returning to school. And then we did a recent survey in early July, and you can see the results from the families who took the survey for July. 41% said they would prefer to stay home until there was a vaccine. And this is actually an increase compared to our survey earlier during the pandemic. And we also have staff who expressed some concerns about returning to campus.
And I'm sorry, I should have let Solomon know, but I believe Rhonda would like to be able to speak to this slide. Is Solomon there?
I'm here. I just promoted her. It'll take a second. Rhonda, can you speak now? There you are. Oh, you're on mute.
I'm on mute. I'm on
Yeah,
mute.
now we can hear.
Hi, my name is Rhonda White. I am a parent in Ravenswood City School District, as well as a teacher in Ravenswood City School District, as well as the union president. And I'd just like to echo what Cindy Chin, the Director of Student Services, said. This was a very hard decision, and teachers were very torn about continuing in distance learning or coming back to school. And I think our priority became the safety of the students and the family and staff. So we're going to make sure that we're working hard so that our students are getting the best possible distance learning education they can get, while hoping that the numbers will go down and so that we can return to the school sites where our kids learn the best. Thank you.
So I have a question about this survey. Was a survey done of the teachers that's separate from this one?
I'll let Rhonda speak on any of the teacher surveys. These results are from the parents.
Right, that's what I thought. These were parents.
Would you ask your question again? I'm sorry, Sharifa.
I wanted to know the survey results of were the teachers surveyed, and then what is the results of that survey?
Yes, the teachers were surveyed. 15% were comfortable with coming back to school. The remaining of the teachers were not comfortable with coming back to school, even though their heart wants to come back to school.
And just another question. Was it coming back with children, or was it just coming back to school?
So that's two totally different questions. One coming back. Yeah. So we want to have this conversation now?
No. Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right, thank you. Solomon, the next slide.
Yeah, and so you can see, across the state, a number of districts are kind of in that same situation, feeling really torn about, being on campus or not for school. And you'll see that a lot of districts, a lot of the large districts have switched to do distance learning as they open up in the fall. And then we also have some local districts there and local charters that are choosing to do distance only to open up the school year.
Good evening, this is Laura Berenin, Director of Curriculum and Instruction. And so because of the information that was just shared, we are preparing to launch an improved distance learning plan for this fall. We all experienced distance learning for the first time this spring, and we've learned a lot about how to improve it. We had to shift to distance learning with almost no notice in March, and we're responding in emergency mode since then. But now we've been able to take time this summer, initially planning for both the hybrid model and distance learning, and now shifting to planning with just distance learning to start off actually lets us focus and phase in a hybrid model when it is safe. So if we were to start the year with a hybrid model and a distance learning model simultaneously for those parents who deem distance learning necessary, that is additionally complex. So we're really going to take advantage of that opportunity to focus. Next slide. So our recommendation is that we start the year with distance learning through September and reevaluate the possibility for a hybrid phase-in for October. You can see the timeline below outlines a few of the action items we are planning for each month. So currently in July, once it is official that we're starting the year with distance learning, continue that planning and submit our recovery plan to San Mateo County Office of Education. And then through August, continue to prepare for the start of school, which is on August 26th. And then into September, our reopening school task force will continue to meet to evaluate our progress, receive and review feedback about how distance learning is going, and also address or review any additional health data that's available to us at that time. We have board meetings scheduled for September 10th and September 24th, at which point we will also have a public hearing on and have approved our learning continuity and attendance plan, which is the new LCAP from the state of California, and evaluate at the end of September if it is safe enough to return to school in October, and really allowing that decision to be driven by the health data available to us, really following our task force's first priority for reopening around health and safety. So our focus through August, again, really needs to be on building a shared vision for distance learning and preparing to launch on the 26th. A few of our major buckets of work include building relationships and community, so planning how we're bringing staff together in general, and particularly at our 2 merging school sites. Supporting parents as co-educators and planning for training and workshops and other touch points so that they feel prepared to support their children at home. Thinking about our special populations, such as special education students, English learners, foster and homeless youth, and any others who may need extra support. So planning for how will they get that extra support or that extra instruction or those extra check-ins. Planning out more around curriculum and materials, planning our professional development to support teacher skills and training, thoughtfully planning our assessment and grading practices as we go into the year. And then last but certainly not least, our technology. We have a lot of planning in the works about student devices, for example, and identifying our student technology needs, both for devices and connectivity, is a key part of distance learning being successful.
Hi, everyone. My name is William Eager. I'm the Chief Business Officer of the school district. A little bit new to the district, so I haven't had a chance to meet all of you yet. This is my 4th day. I've been involved with the district over the last couple of months, including having the pleasure of working with dozens of community members over the last few weeks, putting together our recovery plan, which is the result of hundreds of hours of work, if not thousands of hours of work, by a very diverse coalition of our community members. As many of you know, our broader task force and subcommittees have been meeting weekly, sometimes multiple times a week, since early June, putting together a broader plan here. I think, as I hope some of you have seen, we've put together a fairly robust plan, and I'd like to share a very high-level set of takeaways. As mentioned, the task force and subcommittees drafted the plan with a significant amount of support from families, community members, from multiple surveys, which you've seen some of the results of, 4 parent focus groups, 4 school focus town halls, and numerous public comments. Altogether, the surveys have helped us hear from over 340 students. Town halls have averaged about 35 participants, including staff, partners, and parents. This document is, to some extent, a living document. It reflects our best current thinking, and we're going to keep working on it throughout the school year to refine it as we continue to learn more about this ever-evolving pandemic. I'm going to take you now quickly through some high-level takeaways. So I'm going to start with the health and safety, which is sort of my main focus for my subcommittee. We should really think about how we will keep our community safe when they're on campus or in any of our buildings. First and foremost, we're leaning heavily on the guidance from the San Mateo County Office of Education and other state health agencies. I assume many of you have seen at this point the Safe Return to School 4 pillars: health and hygiene, so washing your hands regularly for a sufficient amount of time, using hand sanitizer. Second, covering your faces, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. Physical distancing, also very familiar with, and limiting gatherings where possible. In implementing this, we've also thought about a couple of different subcomponents as we think about transitioning students back to school. First and foremost is creating a safe and clean learning environment for all of our students and staff in district office. We invested in new cleaning supplies like misters, large quantities of hand sanitizers, and new routines and procedures for our staff in order to make sure that our buildings are all being cleaned sufficiently and sort of more robustly than maybe we have even in the past. Second, obviously more relevant once students are coming back to school, but getting students to school safely. We were developing procedures to make sure that our buses have sufficient capacity to get as many students to school as possible, while also ensuring the students are safe on the bus with the windows down, per guidance from the county. Third, we're going to continue to provide reimbursable meals to families who pick up on our campus, similar to what we did this spring. As students transition back to schools, we've outlined some policies and procedures that we're going to follow in order to make sure families are safe, students are safe while eating on campus, presumably in sort of the most restricted environment, and gradually releasing them to a more normal dining experience. We've also outlined some district and school site operations. So this is how we do drop-off pickup once we're back operating, but also thinking about what are the types of signage and potentially barriers like plexiglass that make sense to add to the building to make sure that our staff is safe and secure on campus, and also that we're developing procedures that ensure for sort of smooth operations through schools while maintaining our 4 pillars here of socially distanced. And finally, we've developed some brilliant guidance with the San Mateo County procedures for responding to new cases or exposure. Hopefully that is not an issue, but if it is, we want to be prepared to respond to this once students and staff are back on site. So I'm into the next slide, I think.
Good evening, board and Board of Trustees. I'm Jennifer Graham, the Director of Special Education here in the district, and I'm going to be presenting the next few slides. The first slide talks to how we will support our students' learning and development. One of our major priorities is providing social emotional learning opportunities, not only for our students, but our families and our staff as well. Our proposal is to begin the year with an improved distance learning model. Like Laura mentioned earlier, we learned a lot from when we had that emergency and had to flip the switch so quick, and we want to implement our learnings as well as build on those learnings. We have groups who are continuing to meet this summer to develop structures going into the school year to continue and improve our distance learning model. We also do have the hybrid model ready to go for when it's safe to phase in a return to school. The team is really being very thoughtful about how to support our unique populations, including students who receive special education services, our English language learners, as well as our homeless and foster youth. In addition, we will be developing plans to fill in any learning gaps that students had as a result of sliding to distance learning. We have some important parameters that have been set forth. The state has required daily minutes that you can see listed on the screen here, 180 minutes for kindergarten, 230 minutes for 1st through 3rd grade, and 240 minutes for 4th through 12th grade. In addition, there needs to be daily live interaction between credentialed staff and students. We need to be teaching all the core content areas, inclusive of designated and integrated ELD. We'll ensure that students have technology and that they can connect daily. Attendance also has to be taken daily, and also noted whether students attended for part of the day or the whole day, and if they attended synchronously or asynchronously. Attendance and progress is going to be documented and communicated regularly with our parents. We will also have consistent and regular communication with parents about how our students are progressing. There will also be a plan to re-engage students who miss more than 60% in any given week, so we will be staying on top of that on a weekly basis. And now I'm going to pass it back to Gina.
Thank you, team, for helping us present this information to the trustees. I know that we've tried to keep the trustees informed in terms of how we've engaged the community. And very similar to how we went through the school merge, we pretty much use the same playbook to ensure that we understand the priorities of our families and community partners and team members of Ravenswood City School District. So just to reiterate what Will shared with you is that we intentionally held several parent focus groups and town hall meetings that included partners, staff, and parents. So there were 8 meetings within 2-week period. And there were probably over, like Will said, over 35 participants at each of those meetings. very much engaged, and an opportunity for them to have a voice as we broke up into different sections or different breakout groups with interpreters. And so we want to continue that practice to engage the broader community and what would be happening. And so the task force will still continue to meet. There's a lot of work to be done before August 26th, the first day of school. And we're already strategically planning when to meet, how to assign projects, what software to use to make this project management of this work much more easy and feasible to manage, because it will be also changing as we proceed. We want to continue educating our community, and you know, our parents are going to continue to be co-educators in so many ways. Even if we do phase in the hybrid model, they're going to be at home supporting students. So we want to make sure we provide enough information, proper training for our educators and our co-educators. And then again, just continue to make sure that it's a two-way dialogue. So we're learning from our staff who are in the forefront, doing the hard work, engaging students, and figuring out how to keep students motivated in any format that we teach, and then also preparing our families to be able to support their children through the process. So we'd like to know if there is any questions or feedback from the overall recovery plan. That was also a document that was sent to you, and any recommendations further regarding the start of the year.
Thank you, Superintendent Sadaria. If we could go back to the view of us being able to discuss with one another and see one another. If
What
you're done
slide?
with this presentation, are you done with the
Yes.
presentation? Okay.
Yes.
So I can't see my colleagues. Okay, here we go. So thank you for the presentation. I think it was kind of broad general overview, but I will say that, as you noted early this morning, you received more detailed information about how a lot of these areas would be addressed. But I want to allow our board to have maybe any initial feedback, comments, or questions before I ask questions about that follow-up. So does anyone have any questions or comments?
Through the chair.
Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to say kudos to the team of folks who were on this committee. I had the pleasure of serving alongside Trustee Wilson on the committee with a number of staff and families and everything. And
Oh.
We
Trustee
lost your
Sabota.
audio. Tam?
Oh no. I'll try to message.
Yeah, Tam, we can't hear you.
Oh,
There you are.
there you go. You're back.
my internet, something about Glenway, I don't know, but so I don't have any questions per se. I just wanted to say thank you, and then just follow up on when we'd hear back from the county with our first proposal, whatever it is, whatever the vote turns out to be. It says we would come back in July to circle back.
So we would like to share with the county our final draft of our recovery plan by the 24th. But in reality, they really just need an idea of what we'll be doing. They don't need a detailed report, but we do have one not only for them, but for the community at large to truly understand the work that we're doing. And it is on our agenda online already.
Okay. Okay. That's it for now. Thank you.
Right. Anyone else?
To share.
Yes.
I do like the fact that we, in order to protect our students, we go to distance learning, back to distance learning instead of the blended program that you guys work so hard, the task force, but it is not wasted. We're gonna continue to use it when we go back to teach, when the teachers go back to teach. Actually, I'm not going there. But I wanna make sure that we do address the child care needs of our community, because we do have low-income people who rely on the students going to school, and this is a time when they go to work. And I understand that many of them have not been able to work. So we need to brainstorm how can we help these families. That's number one. Making sure that they got equity and the fact that all of them have childcare one way or the other. And I think we need to be available, give them the help that they need in order to make those needs met. And another thing I would like to see before anybody, and I would like this to see at all schools, not just at our district, make sure that we do get some testing. I don't know how can we do it, but just like teachers get tested for tuberculosis before they go to work, and students get tested for that too before they get enrolled in the school. I think it's very wise to do this. I was telling that yesterday I went to visit a family who was needy, and I was taking some goods for them. They live in Redwood City, but I know that if there are 329 cases here in East Palo Alto, there must be kids of these people who are sick. So how are we gonna know if the children get it too? And even though they might not get seriously ill, they do get seriously ill too, because there are kids in the hospital already. How do we know that they're not carriers? So we need to do everything we can to protect the community, the students, and the employees. And I want us to brainstorm on how can we get this testing. I understand that the San Mateo County, the health department, San Mateo County are backing up on the testing, but somehow we can get it done, sending them to the community, testing that happening around our city and Palo Alto. You just brainstorm on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gaona. Any other board member?
I do have another question, but I'll let other people go if people want to go.
I don't know that. I think you might be interested, Shalom. Do you want to go ahead? Can you hear me? Maybe not. Okay.
Pam?
I didn't hear what you said. Sorry, my internet is tripping. So really quick, my question is around liability, right? So whether we do a hybrid model, whether they come back 100% of the time, I don't know if you can still hear me. I'm wondering about support from the county and state around liability if someone does get sick, whether it's staff or students, as a result of being in our buildings.
Yes, and I can have Tony speak to about staff, but I do know we recently got correspondence from SMCSIG, our insurance group, to sign off on potentially being or receiving liability coverage. I will have to look into that more closely, but it is a possibility. Tony, did you want to?
Sure. So for our staff, any potential claims would be handled through our workers' compensation insurance.
But wouldn't a claim only be valid if we weren't taking the precautionary measures? If we were being careless and negligent, would open us up to a possible suit. But if we are practicing and implementing all the practices of social distancing, wearing masks, the whole 9 yards, and how would we be at fault in any way from someone suing us because they got sick?
So there is a presumption in California that if an employee contracts COVID-19 and they have been working within the previous 14 days, that they did contract it at work. And that's just a presumption that then would have to be investigated to be able to say otherwise. So essentially, somebody from our workers' compensation insurance company would come in and do an investigation with the employee to figure out if they could have been exposed somewhere other than the workplace. There is a presumption.
But I guess I don't understand how hospitals are managing that. That's what I mean. Like, I feel like there's essential workers, right, that are kind of someone mandated to work.
That's right.
And as long as you're following procedures, I mean, otherwise hospitals will be getting sued left and right, and they wouldn't still be there. Because I mean, a lot of, medical people in the medical field obviously are contracting it because they're dealing with so many sick people, even though they're following procedures. And I don't think, I just feel like I don't think our liability, if we are following procedures, is significant, given that there's only so much we can do. We can just follow procedure and protocol. Otherwise,
it's not to,
yeah.
And it's not to say that we would be found liable, but there is a presumption that we have to go up against.
Right. I think another way for us to be liable is if for example, we're in a shelter in place order and we are no longer considered part of the essential workforce, and then we're still expecting staff to come in. Like, those are the types of way that I see that we would be liable to a suit. But if we're following the guidelines and the orders, I don't know. I guess I'm
Yeah, no,
about
yeah, for me, it's really sticky because even as we were going through the details, like even for something like a practical thing, like let's say a teacher gets sick, you know, and they found out they get COVID-19, then what do we do with the students, right? Do we then require quarantine for those students that that teacher came in contact with? So that entire class and any other classes or any other staff that might have come in contact. So things like that, it just felt like we had no direction. I could be wrong, but it feels like I had no direction from the county or the state for situations like that. Or if a child in the classroom gets it, then what is our responsibility as a district? Do we require testing? Do we require quarantine? Do we pay for their testing before they're allowed to, you know, of the other students before they can come back to school? So it just feels like there are a lot of gaps, which then for me makes me, you know, anxious about, again, what's our responsibility and what's our liability, because not everything is explicit, like to what you're talking about, saying as long as we follow the guidelines, because they haven't been that explicit in the things we should be doing, it makes me nervous. But just,
Right.
yeah.
I also saw from San Mateo County, actually, I had seen a framework of how school districts and schools should manage these situations. So actually, I saw guidance on, and maybe I can share that with the superintendent Sadari if she doesn't have it.
It's in the framework, Trustee Polito, on page 34, but more direction on when there is a case for a staff or student and then what their family members do. But it's not very clear in terms of what happens.
Well, I don't think we have jurisdiction over family members, but we do have jurisdiction over their students and our staff. So what we ask them to do is something that we are able to determine, right? I mean, of course, we can always ask families to quarantine themselves, but they're kind of third.
Right, and I think that, yeah, and I think that addresses Trustee Shabomahin's comment about what do we do if a student in the classroom, God forbid, contracts COVID-19, do we quarantine the entire class? Do we quarantine just the teacher? Is it both? And then the siblings of those students in the class? And it just seems to be a rabbit hole that we are getting lost in.
The guidance that I'm talking about, which is why I brought it up, said that from what I remember, said that if someone has contracted as school student or staff, the whole school shuts down to be disinfected. And then they return to school after disinfection, except the individuals that were found to be tested positive, they would remain quarantined for the amount of days indicated.
Correct. That's on page 34.
Yeah. So that's, to me, not, although it doesn't answer every single question, of course, I feel like it does provide some kind of direction. So are there other questions or comments from the board?
I also wanted to clarify, Trustee Polito, if I may, about the AB one. It's called AB 1384, and it's to provide the district's limited liability during the ongoing COVID pandemic if we were to reopen. So it's right now in the beginning stages, and so we are encouraged as a district to participate in signing the petition. For the writing campaign.
So I am a strong, personally, proponent of students learning and thriving the best when they're in the classroom, obviously. I'm always thinking about how our school district is unique in a lot of ways. And one of it is that we have an extraordinarily high number of students with IEP, with special needs. And I'm glad to hear that we're not planning on doing distance learning for the whole semester. We're going to attempt to transition to a hybrid model because I know families are burdened with being able to help their students in the way that they need in order to follow along. Just in this meeting alone, Trustee Shibomi kind of cut off 2-3 times, right? So either we're not hearing what she's saying or she's not hearing what we're saying, right? So that shows you the flaws with distance learning as much as we plan for it, right? It shows you how maybe students are not going to be able to get the enriched experience they would normally get with instruction. And given that we have so many students with IEPs with special needs, I'm always eager to see when it's safe to do so, obviously, to bring students back to the classroom, obviously with safety as a priority. So I was happy to see that we're going to try to transition into that in October, and I'm sure we're going to have a check-in point to see where we are at with the pandemic, of course. This has been changing so frequently and so rapidly that one minute we think we're in the clear, the next minute we're regressing, right? We're going backwards instead of forward. So I think it'll be important for us to stay close to state orders, to health department orders, and really work also on, and you all shared in the presentation, and I had a chance to read the report that we received this morning. I think it was about 45 pages. So I worked during the day, so I didn't have a chance to read every single page yet. But I'm really, really looking forward to see how we're going to do distance learning differently than last spring, right? And I did see, some things carved out, but I want to take a deeper dive. I mean, I think everyone was understanding and flexible to the fact that the pandemic happened suddenly and no one anticipated it, and everyone was doing the best they could to finish off the school year and give kids what they needed. But now that we know we're planning for the future, I want to figure out what did we learn from our last semester and how are we going to enrich the program and the process for our students. And so I look forward of reading every single page of that framework that was sent to us today, and continue to ask the questions and help solve the problems that we're facing with this new normal, right? But thank you to the task force who worked together to put this together in a short amount of time. I think one thing I can say that I'm very proud of Ravenswood, it seems that everyone's really coming together to kind of solve problems, right? And not every district is functioning in that way, right? You have districts that are freaking out and aren't doing anything because they're so freaked out, right? And then you have districts where it just people think so drastically different that no one's coming to a consensus. So I think even though this is not a perfect solution for anyone, and I'm sure we all wish we could do more, it appears that we're working for the purpose of trying to figure out how to best serve students and also keep students safe and of course staff. I think about the parent survey and how 60% still want their kids back in school. And I think it goes back to what I'm saying. Our families are overwhelmed, right? They're having to work and they're having to try to figure out how to get their kids help. I think this is an equity issue, right? Most of our parents can't afford tutors, can't afford nannies, can't afford all the things that other families in other school districts can. So what can we do? How do we work to help address some of those burdens? I don't know if we're looking at maybe creating like workstations on campus for some students that really just need a quiet place. What would that look like? So I know that there's still going to be a lot of conversation happening through August. I saw that as part of the presentation. So I think we're all going to be just closely watching and listening and working to see how we can successfully reopen. So I'm kind of anxious about it all. So I think Trustee Wilson, is that you raising your hand?
Yes, it is me. Am I on?
Yes.
Okay. So a couple of things. First of all, I was very happy to be involved in the task force as well. I think everybody was truly committed to figuring out how this can best work for our students. one of the things that I would like to see in the slide around the focus through August is some mention about looking at the capital kinds of things that we need to do, or building kinds of things we need to do. We talked about, for example, I was in the operations subcommittee. We talked about hand washing stations. We talked about making sure that we have the hand sanitizers, making sure that, you know, so I would like to see that as one of the bullet points that we're looking at, because if we decide that we're gonna open in October, to me, there should be no excuse for, oh, we didn't do this. So all those kinds of things, having the fountains checked, having those bathrooms checked for the water, you know, all that kind of stuff needs to be done during that time. And then the other thing is, just as we were talking about the cases in East Palo Alto, I actually went on to the link, and as of today, there's actually 401 families in East Palo Alto, or positive, which gives us a positivity rate that is almost 3 times the rate of the county. And so that's the thing for me, is that boards are given the latitude to make the decision based on local conditions. And for me, our local condition says to me, I mean, frankly, for me, I want the whole city locked down at this point, because 13% of the, you know, that's a lot of people. And we know that the kids are coming from overcrowded conditions. And so they're living in homes. Oh, right, that was the other thing I was going to mention. So I spoke to the Department of Health, the deputy director of the Department of Health, because I wanted to know, how are the schools going to be informed if one of our students is coming out of a family where there's been tested positive? And she told me that they follow the same procedure that we would do for communicable disease. So if somebody had the measles, the chickenpox, whatever procedure they use to contact the school is what they will do. I think, first of all, that we should have a point person so that all the calls go to one person. And then I don't know, you know, there's all these HIPAA things and all these confidentiality issues and all this kind of stuff, but we somehow have to figure out, how do we address that? Because it goes back to the question, what happens if we discover that a kid tests positive and they're in the classroom? What do we do with that classroom of kids?
Thank you, Trustee Wilson, for sharing that insight and feedback and input. You know, when I think about that number 400, I think about the reasons why, right? So I think in part, obviously, a lot of our families are either essential workers, they don't have a choice, they have to work, right? You have to pay the bills, you got to do things that you don't necessarily want to do, but you're having to do. And I think that's a layer of it. But I also think that, you know, I live in the community, as we all do, and business is as usual around here, right? People aren't really following the regulations or anything. And I wonder how we can partner with the city to try to get something established, because by having those numbers so high, like you all say, if we're looking at local conditions at this rate, when are we ever going to be able to reopen, right? So how do we partner with the city to make sure that as a city, right, we're being responsible and we're all working together to get to a place where, you know, we can reopen schools, right? I think it's a burden to families, and that they not only have to be stressed about how they're paying the bills, but they're having to be stressed about their kids being unsupervised and not being able to get the help that they need, right? So I would love to see how we can partner with the city to discuss how the lack of implementation of all these guidelines is really affecting the district, how it's affecting students being able to return to school. I think we need to build some kind of accountability. And I think the only way to do that is by reaching out to, you know, our city council and saying, hey, how can we work together? And I don't know if Trustee Wilson, you're shaking your head because you want to share something.
Yeah. Yes, because I was going to say the city has already indicated that they're trying to find ways to, quote, support the schools. So here's a perfect example of an opportunity for us to work with the city, maybe putting together a, you know, a marketing campaign to get everybody in the city of East Palo Alto to wear a mask. You know, I don't know what, but maybe we can. So I agree that we should work with, because in the end, it is about us getting our environment safe so that we can open the schools.
Absolutely. And I mean, me, for example, I went to a local store, and I won't say what store, but
Right.
they weren't following any regulations.
Which is why I don't go to anything anymore.
Yeah, they weren't marking where
Right.
people should be standing. They were letting people in without masks. So it's kind of like, wait a second. You know what I mean? We have to, as a community, come together and take responsibility for those numbers as well. Like I said, I don't think it's one thing. I think it's a few things that's contributing to that high number. But that community component is a significant contributor. I mean, I can look out my window and people are just hanging about business as usual. And that's been happening since the very beginning. So it sucks that our kids are trapped in a house trying to stay safe, but everything around them is as usual. So the situation's not getting better. So that's just my last comment. Let's try to figure out how we can work with the city to help bring those numbers down.
The chair.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I appreciate that idea about working with the city. I think that's going to be really crucial because I don't want our schools to make the mistake that a lot of states are making right now of opening up too early. The reason why we're seeing this spike again is because people are trying to open up again too early. So I'm really glad that we've pivoted our strategy of starting the year with distance learning. I appreciate the hard work that the staff and the task force has done to create the plans around the hybrid model. And I'm glad that that's how we'll be able to ease back in when numbers are actually down and staying down. But I'm really glad for the safety of our students and our staff and our community as a whole that we're going to start with the distance learning. Also, we have some speakers on this issue whenever we are ready for that.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. Was there another trustee that wanted to say something? No? Okay, so, yes.
Trustee Polito, I just wanted to say thank you for bringing up a partnership with the city because I actually had that at point too. So we should absolutely be partnering with them in this moment. And so not just around partnerships for how to protect all residents by ensuring people are actually following social distancing procedures, but even around if there are ways, Superintendent Sudaria, that they can support our efforts in distance education. So I know we have, for example, CCI has agreed to prolong our use of like their mobile hotspots. But like if there are ways to put in internet across the city, there are cities that do that. Like that's something East Palo Alto could do potentially to help make our distance education plan stronger, right? So thank you for bringing up that point again, Trustee Polito and everybody. So thank you.
All right, so let's hear from some speakers. Trustee Fitch?
Yeah, the first speaker that I had pop up is Jesucita Riviera.
Okay, she's being promoted. Jesucita, you should be able to speak.
Hi. Okay. So yeah, I'm Jesucita Rivera. I teach, hello, Superintendent Daria and Board of Trustees. I've been teaching in the district going on to 20 years. And the thought of possibly not opening in the fall with my students is heartbreaking, but as Trustee Wilson mentioned, it's the safest thing to do for distance learning, for the safety of the children. Back in 2003, when I was teaching 6th grade in Bellhaven, in the safety of my classroom, I was exposed to tuberculosis. I tested positive and will forever test positive for it. I've taken medication for it, but the risk of me having tuberculosis in the future is higher because of my exposure in the safety of my classroom. I am so nervous to go back. And as a matter of fact, my doctor has not cleared me to go back in person. So I really appreciate the hard work that the task force did in coming up with the hybrid model. However, the hybrid model will still have me on campus 4 days a week, exposed to many different groups of children. And so I really appreciate the board discussing the fact of safety. And I do understand that students, there will be some loss somewhere, but I'd rather have academic loss than lives lost. And so please consider the distance learning model, because I really do not want to I don't want to go into a position where I am at high risk, according to my doctor. And I would hate to have to console students who have lost their teacher because of this pandemic, this disease. And it's our classrooms were shut physically, but school kept going. Even in March, I was working 18, it seems like 18-hour days to make sure the students got the best education possible. And there were days when I had attendance of 23. So I feel that in the fall, we'll be ready for distance learning. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Yeah, let me see if they're still popping up.
Yes. Is it
Sorry.
Grandma Fancy?
Yeah, I was gonna say Grandma Fancy.
And can you please state your name, Grandma Fancy, when you come on? You should be able to speak now. Okay, Grandma Fancy, can you please state your name?
Nicole.
Nicole, you have 2 minutes to speak.
Okay, so a lot of my questions were somewhat answered in just the conversation. So I was really concerned about how things were going to be as far as transportation on the bus, cleaning and sanitizing the bus, lunch, recess, those type of things. And also, if there was someone that was found to be positive, even if it's a teacher, how would you handle that situation? And some of those questions were answered. But surely before school gets started, I think those need to be very clearly stated on how you guys would handle such a situation. See my other little notes here. And hopefully the city can really help out. That's a lot of people that's positive for that little city of East Palo Alto.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very concerning.
Nicole, is that it?
Must be finished.
All right, well, thank you for your comments. And to her point, I know we briefly discussed how we would handle if someone tested positive, and I'm looking at the plan, Superintendent Sidari, about transportation. It says we're gonna follow guidelines and that the windows will be down at all times and no more than 2 students per seat. Although I don't know that that follows 6 feet social distancing, but and that's kind of the early work, but I'm sure that's going to be worked upon further during these next months through August. Yes.
Yes, and I know Will has more to add.
Yeah, just on the county guidelines have been more permissive in terms of the number of students per seat than other guidelines. And so there were guidelines, I believe, from the Council of CDC outlining 1 student per seat. And there were also guidelines from the Council of Great City Schools saying 1 student per every other seat. And so part of what we were trying to do here is follow guidelines, but also try and understand the differences between the various sets here. I think in California, there's a greater ability for buses to drive with windows down than there are in other parts of the country, which may explain some of the less stringent guidelines than other places have outlined. I think we're still working on, we're not that close to, I think, having kids on school buses soon, but as we get closer to that, we will pick a number that's safe, and we will identify policies to make sure the students do have masks on, potentially exploring adding other adults to the bus to help ensure the students are wearing masks at all times and that windows are down during the bus ride. Does that help address some of those concerns?
Yes. She also had a question about food and meals, and I believe that if we're 100% distance learning, will continue as we have in the past, where there's meal pickups for the day of and the following day. And if they're on campus, I think it reads that there's going to be bagged meals, so there's no more like sharing, like kind of buffet style or whatnot. They're going to be meals that are bagged and they can be collected for the day of and the next day.
Our hope is in many of these operational cases to start with the most restrictive, safe environment, and then quickly, as safe as possible, transition to a slightly more normal eating environment. We do think there's going to be a new normal, which probably for this year will involve not having buffet or salad bars for the foreseeable future, just because we don't know how we can do that safely and responsibly. Of course, if something happens, we'd love to give students that option, that level of choice back in their meals.
And then through the chair, I was going to also mention that one of the other things that we were discussing in the operations subcommittee was doing a variety, once the kids come back to the building, doing a variety of options for lunch, because we can have some sit outside and eat their lunch. Other kids can sit in the classroom. Other kids can maybe, we put a certain number. So we're looking at, one of the things that I would say is that everybody is really looking closely at all of these issues and really coming up with a lot of what ifs. So we're really taking a focus on making sure that whatever policies or practices we put in place will in fact be the maximum focused on the safety of the students and the staff.
All right, thank you. Do we have another speaker, Trustee Fitch?
Yeah, we have a couple more speakers. The next one I have is Ida Zudi.
Okay, Mr. Dezudi should be able to speak.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, very good. I have talked with a few colleagues, and we've discussed the possibility and want to know if it is a possibility for us to, as we are in distance learning, for us to come to school. The teachers can come to their classrooms. Now, keep in mind, we would be isolated within our classrooms and do the distance learning from our classrooms because of the availability of materials and resources in the classroom that we have already that we can use, rather than packing everything up and dragging it all the way home and doing it from home. Also, should we be able to go back to a hybrid model, or go to a hybrid model in October? It might be an easier transition too for the teachers and the students if we have the ability to already set things up along the way prior to students returning. I can show you my office, and it's packed full of books. So that's why I'm asking. And I know a few colleagues are looking at the same question. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a great question. I think that we briefly touched on it with Superintendent Sadaria, not at this meeting, but at a previous meeting, about although distance learning means students learning from home, it doesn't necessarily mean staff at home, given that they each have a classroom and they technically would be able to come in. So I don't know if Superintendent Sadaria, you want to speak more on that?
Yeah, I would like to add that we want to make sure the conditions are such that it accommodates for, we need to have proper scheduling for the use of the restrooms when all staff are on campus, because there are some shared spaces that inadvertently we need to use. And so we need to strategize on making sure that the restrooms remain clean and that there's a proper schedule. We also have to take into consideration that a lot of our staff have children who are in school or need daycare, and there's no other location for them. So we need to provide some accommodations so that they are able to manage home life and their work, right? Because we're not the only district that's considering online, where our teachers are going to be co-educators and fulfilling their role as a teacher. But there definitely is the fact that if students are not on campus, their classrooms are going to be safe for them to work from.
So when will staff know about what the flexibility for and the offerings are for them to be able to do whatever they need to do to?
We're working, once we get confirmation about the online piece, we are going to work with the Health and Safety Subcommittee to work on a schedule specifically around our accommodations for bio breaks, for example.
For bio breaks?
Bathroom, using the bathroom, washing hands. It's the new term these days.
But don't most of our classroom have sinks?
Yes, but you're using restrooms, right? And that's the main piece, because going into further detail, we all need bio breaks throughout the day. And our instructional day is going to be, or our regular work day will continue. It's from 8 to 3:30, contract hours.
Wouldn't that just mean more like frequent cleaning? I mean, I want to be able to give teachers who are able and willing to come on campus to have the space they need to properly do their job, the opportunity and access to do so. I think that's critical. I would love ideally for all of our teachers to be able to do that, but given what you're saying that some of them either have underlying health issues or.
Right. I mean, we have shared that we are open for staff to bring children to their classroom, for example, but we need to consider liability there, right? And then obviously the scheduling of being able to utilize space and make sure we have spaces clean, those common spaces that they will be using. So we're still working out the logistics on that.
Okay, well, I'll look forward to hearing more about that. Thank you to that speaker. Who's our next speaker?
Jesus Villalobos.
Able to speak? Jesus?
Good evening. My name is Jesus Villalobos. I have a son in Sequoia MA and a daughter in Castaño, Ravenswood. I am an innovative parent leader, a lifelong resident of EPA, and I went to Castaño myself. On Monday, July 13th, we met with some of the San Mateo County of Education board members, Trustee Lambert Roth, President Camacho, and Superintendent Maggie, at a community forum by Innovate Public Schools. In this meeting, we had over 200 parents and community members in attendance. I would like to share some of our priorities. One, we need a plan to address learning loss so our students don't fall even more behind. Two, students need individualized support that includes office hours with teachers and to ensure that each student's socialized emotional needs are met. Three, we urgently need support for special population English learners, special ed, and low income. Four, we need a clear definition and guarantee minimum of instruction minutes. The four members who attended agreed to keep these priorities in mind while providing the local district and charter schools plans that will be submitted to the county this week. We hope that throughout this process, the Ravenswood School District can keep families engaged as all already have been doing. We know and appreciate that all of you are listening and supporting our families. When parents have a seat at the table, decision makers like yourselves can better understand all the needs of children academically and social-emotionally. I'd like to thank Superintendent Zudaria and her staff for creating subcommittee and school town halls. We all look forward to continuing work with you to provide a world-class education for all of our children. Thank you.
Thank you. I think all those points are valid and I'm sure we're working through. Our next speaker, please.
That's all I have for speakers on this item.
Got it. Superintendent Zudaria, is the plan that you shared with us this morning available to the public?
Yes, the presentation is attached to the first item under the superintendent's report, and then the recovery plan is attached to the second item where the board would take action.
Right. So I encourage everyone that might have some questions that maybe we didn't hear be addressed to read over the plan, and it'll have a lot more information than what was presented. And it even indicate where are areas that are still being discussed and developed, so you kind of know where we're at.
There's another speaker.
And while we get the speaker ready, I just also wanted to clarify as well that the community can find our presentation and the recovery plan on the website under reopening schools.
Thank you.
As Minda Zavala, you raised your hand. You're on mute. Esminda? No, you're not. We can't hear you. Are you on mute? There you are.
Sí, bueno,
Yes. Sí.
sí, yo tengo un comentario. Buenas tardes. Sí, buenas noches. Me llamo Asminda Zavala. Tengo 4 hijos y uno de ellos asiste a los Robles McNair en 5º grado. Yo soy una mamá líder de Innovate y he ido a las reuniones del distrito y de la escuela de mi hijo. Y creo que la presencia de nosotros los padres hace una gran diferencia en su futuro. Nosotros recibimos apoyo de los maestros y del director. Nos prestaron una computadora por parte de la escuela. Para mi hijo y para mí es más fácil tener acceso a las clases de Zoom y para ver la tarea del día. Una de las maestras me explicó paso a paso cómo podía checar si mi hijo estaba haciendo sus tareas y cuando estaba completando sus trabajos. Yo no tenía mucha experiencia de tecnología y ella me ayudó mucho. Para nosotros es importante porque podemos ver en qué necesitan más apoyo y nosotros como padres podemos ayudarlos. Ir a la biblioteca, usar sitios en línea. Es importante darnos cuenta de lo que ellos están aprendiendo. La comunicación entre maestros y padres es muy importante. Podemos ver el trabajo que los maestros están haciendo con nuestros hijos. Es importante que los maestros nos envíen un correo con la asignatura de nuestros hijos. Las escuelas deben tener reuniones de padres, explicar y ayudar a los padres cómo apoyar a los hijos. Nosotros los padres debemos estar informados y comunicándonos con los maestros. A la mesa directiva les pido, cualquier decisión que hagan, lo hagan pensando en el futuro de nuestros hijos y su educación. Y nosotros los padres mantengámonos informados e involucrados, porque nuestros hijos son el futuro del mundo. Muchas gracias.
All right, thank you. Is that our last speaker, Trustee Fitch?
Yep, that's all that I saw raising their hands.
Okay, to this last speaker's point, it kind of gave me a question to ask. You know, we're teaching students how to adapt to distance learning, but when I think about also helping teach parents how to adapt to distance learning, I mean, I think it'd be great if we don't already, maybe we do have it, if we have like YouTube tutorials on how to like log in and check the status and communicate with their teachers. How do they reach out? That's both in English and Spanish, just like really simple how-tos. And this may already be the case. So please tell me if it is or if it's not.
Yes, I can speak to that just a little bit. There were a few parent guides we were able to create in the spring around some basics, such as even like turning on the hotspot that they received and connecting it to Wi-Fi and then connecting the Chromebook to that Wi-Fi network, right? There's quite a few steps in there, but certainly we'll be thinking through all of the different things we want to support parents with as we launch this fall. Everything from using the technology to the student learning and assessment expectations, opportunities for parent communication, et cetera.
Great, that would be awesome. I think that would be really helpful for people to just kind of like hit a YouTube link and see how to, you know. All right, thank you. So those are all our speakers, and it's kind of, there's kind of 2 parts to this. That was the report, but there's also an action item that I believe goes along with this, and it's to approve the school reopening plan that will be submitted to the San Mateo County Office of Education.
In addition to, I believe, providing us direction on moving forward with our recommendation for online.
So I thought I heard that the board was supporting the recommendation that you all had, and any board member can, you know, correct that if they feel differently as far as starting fully distance learning and then hopefully planning to move into a hybrid model, but of course we'll have a check-in point in September to make sure that we will be able to do that, and monitoring conditions to be able to determine that. Does any board member have anything to the contrary to, or just add to that as far as where we kind of landed with this?
Through chair.
Yes.
It might not be what you are asking, but I just want to make sure that we do provide training to the parents to help, just second in what you just asked. Making sure that they do get training on how to help the students with the new technology, because there are parents who say, we couldn't do it. I mean, in Redwood City, I don't know, over here probably happens too. We had no idea, the computer, just quit on us, or the other student was already, because there are more than one kid in the house and they at different levels, middle school, elementary school, high school, and the system, the internet system is not working. So that's what I mean also about equity, making sure that everybody needs what they need, whatever service they need in order to access the curriculum.
I saw that the plan actually also allowed for packets to be handed out.
Yeah.
And I think,
sorry, go ahead.
So I think for me, when I think about the equity piece, I know that some people just maybe are not going to get the online distance learning, and instead of allowing them to lose so much instruction, I had brought up a couple meetings ago, and I see, Rhonda happy about that, about being able to deliver packets to students who are going to be, it's going to be easier for them to follow along, right? You're meeting every student where they're at. And I did see it mentioned in the plan that was presented to us, or that was shared with us. So I don't know, Superintendent, if you want to elaborate more on that.
Right. And then Lotta can please add more too. We understand that the mode of learning through online is challenging and it's new. And so we want to, though we need to make sure it's uniform across the board, cater to the needs of our students to the best way we can. And so we do want to ensure that we do have physical artifacts for students who would benefit from it. And we are going to need a transition as well when we start off, because there's going to be students who are going to need to acquire the technology because they're new families to the district. There's students who may have damaged or lost their devices. And so we're going to be going through a transition period from the get-go, but want to make sure that we have learning materials in the hands of students as soon as possible. Lotta, did you want to share more?
Sure. I mean, just to emphasize that family communication is really essential to make sure that everyone has the technology that they need. And we've learned a lot from our previous experience, like we said. So for example, we've learned that even the way you phrase the question about whether a family has internet access actually impacts the data that you get back. Because if you just ask, do you have access to the internet? They might say yes, and they might be referring to their phone, like a data plan on their phone, but that's actually not the kind of internet access that we want them to have so that their students can access their schoolwork, right? So that's just one example. And then to your question, President Pulido, yes, we specified in the plan that we want to offer students multiple opportunities for learning, both through technology. Live instruction is very important to us and really critical for connecting students to their teacher and to each other. And also have access to analog materials. So we'll do materials distributions at a frequency we haven't yet determined, but we want students to have actual books to read and to be writing, to be making art, playing music, and certainly paper packets can be part of that. And we also see it as a differentiation opportunity. So we want to see who is able to access the technology and the live instruction offered and the asynchronous online instruction, and then also know that we can provide packets, for example, to students who need them.
Thank you.
We have another person who raised their hand.
All right.
Diana Krippendorf.
Diana?
The parents at the RTA meeting that we had today, the teachers were saying that we need training. The teachers need training on the technology and everything. And we were hoping that maybe there could be some training before school starts or something for us to, be trained. And it was also brought up that there were several new teachers hired. And I know I'm coming from reading recovery to back to the classroom, so I don't know, the different technology too. But a lot of the teachers are saying that they really wanted to, have training before school started on the different technologies. So not just the parents, but the training, the teachers need it too. So anyway, thank you for all you do. And that would be a wonderful thing to get training. Thank you.
So, through the chair,
Thank you.
could you, because I've been hearing about all this training. So could Superintendent please respond to that?
Right. I was going to ask if someone can speak to the professional development that has been made available and that will be made available and when, so that.
Right, because all the ancillary teaching staff, like reading recovery teachers, special education teachers, have all been part of site professional development. And so Lada can share a little bit more about the professional development, but there's been specific training once we went into distance learning that principals held for staff around Google Classroom, around Seesaw, to help transition staff. Now, obviously, there's still a lot more learning to be had, and we want to improve on our practices, but it was made available to our staff, what we were prepared to present.
Just really quick, to the speaker's point before Lada answers, so she understands kind of what I'm also thinking too in answering this question. I did hear there was PD, but I actually heard from, I guess, teacher rep that a lot of the training was like teachers sharing with each other, oh, look up this YouTube channel or this YouTube link and, you can learn how to do X, Y, or Z. And there wasn't enough formal training. Now, how much of that is accurate? I mean, I don't know, but just to give you more context and allow you to answer that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm sure you know that we are limited by the contract for the amount of professional development that we can provide during those times. But one thing that was mentioned in the teacher survey from the spring is that it was actually the grade level collaboration with either principal or instructional coach or even another grade level team that was one of the most valuable professional learning opportunities. And that really makes sense when you think about it, because teachers of the same grade level can meet together to plan common curriculum and also do so in smaller groups. So I don't know how everyone's experience here has been online, but as we think about online learning, both for students and for teachers, that group size really matters because people have to be able to be vulnerable to ask questions, to be able to put their voice into the group and have their questions answered, that kind of thing. So that's a really important part of our professional learning plan moving forward, is to really leverage that collaboration time in addition to our contracted PD time. And then we also have a variety of optional professional development offered before school even starts. So for example, there's middle school staff attending summit training next week. For our K-5 staff, we have the Balanced Literacy Institute for 5 days from August 10th through 14th. And that was actually planned even before COVID hit. But with the commitment to starting the year with distance learning and everything we learned in the spring, I've actually mentioned before how our staff developers are already planning to teach about strategies that we can use to effectively teach and assess reading and writing online via distance learning. So we're definitely working hard to put many different plans in place, both for those who would like to opt into additional professional development and those who may not. Although, just to put a plug, I do encourage staff to sign up for the various opportunities available. I really, want to assure you that we're doing our best to plan for it to be meaningful, a really good use of your time, an opportunity for additional compensation, even to acknowledge that you're using part of your summer for professional growth and to prepare for the challenges of the coming year. And then we will continue to get feedback from staff as well about additional professional development needed. And then talking about a professional learning plan would definitely not be complete if I didn't mention one-on-one instructional coaching. So we have coaches at each of our sites who can work with teachers, as I mentioned, in teams or even one-on-one, and they can conduct coaching cycles where they can plan a lesson with teachers beforehand. So in this case, via our distance learning format, be in the lesson with the teacher to take low inference observational data and then debrief afterwards to help the teacher articulate, okay, what went well in this lesson? Where did I really hit my goals? And what are some areas where I'd like to improve? And then finally, a really important focus for us this year is around formative assessment. It's really important that we're giving students ample opportunity to participate in learning, especially during live instruction. And that feedback is how teachers will know that students are even, listening and paying attention, and then also what they're learning. And analyzing student work throughout our teaching is really important to know what students are learning, how we need to adjust instruction, and how they're making progress towards grade level standards. So we definitely have a lot happening in terms of planning for professional learning, and we'd be happy to share updates as well at future meetings.
So my follow-up question to that is if earlier in the presentation, I forgot if it was Cindy or no, Rhonda said that only 12% of teachers were wanting to come back to the classroom, and I think the rest were really wanting distance learning. So if there's such a strong support for distance learning, wouldn't we be able to negotiate a side letter with RTA about increasing the PD hours, given that this is an unusual situation, right? And we're all having to make adjustments and be flexible, right? So are we not discussing with our unions about increasing those PD hours? And if not, why not? Given that, we're also equally accommodating staff, right, in this decision, because as we noted, 60% of parents actually want their kids back in school, and it seems that it's more significant on the staff side that don't feel comfortable coming back to the classroom for safety reasons. I'm kind of a little bit baffled that we haven't worked through increasing PD so that every teacher is coming back ready and equipped to do distance learning fully. So I don't know if Rhonda popped back up to speak to that.
Can you hear
I'd like
me?
to add first though, just to keep in mind the instructional minutes that we do have to abide by, and the teaching work hours are still the same as of now from 8 to 3:30. And so professional development currently is every other Wednesday. And then you have collaboration time that is still a daily, 4 days out of the week, I believe, for staff to come together and either do at grade level. So grade level collaboration, 4 days out of the week, every other Wednesday, professional development, which is at the site level or the district level. And then also opportunities for staff to opt into professional development that's after school. We already have contract work days too, that's already been agreed upon. And so I believe, and Tony, you can chime in terms of the number of days. It escaped me in terms of returning teachers and new teachers, there's specific work days. And so we're allotted a specific amount of days before school starts as well. So there really is no additional time to consider at this point. Unless
we postponed the start of the school year. That's one thing we did.
No, we postponed the start, but it doesn't give us more time, because school starts on August 26th, which starts the 180 days of school. But teachers then report earlier than that to equate to their actual work calendar.
So
but
we
it doesn't add a longer work calendar.
How do we work with RTA though to make it that it's not just optional? Because I hear that we're having these Wednesdays and these every other, and I get that, but it's not required. So
no, those are required.
Okay, so right now every Wednesday we have
every other
time. Okay, every other Wednesday.
Sure. Through Sherry, I may speak. Through Sherry.
Yes.
I just want to let you know, give an example of what Redwood City did in our district with the teachers. Just 1 week before school was over, we have to stop the instruction so we could get training the whole week. And as soon as we come back, it's gonna be training again before the students come in. And we have to be trained in the different platforms that the district has for technology that we can use. Like also, she was, Ms. Laura was mentioning the formative assessment. How could we do those assessments online? So there are different platforms that we could use, and making sure that we are ready to go for it, because at the beginning, when the pandemic first occurred, it was more like a crisis. You know, we were not prepared. Many people were not prepared. Some of them were already good at it. Some are better at technology. But I'm thinking on the case of the last speaker. She's coming from, and there must be a lot more than that, not just her. She's only the brave one who came and spoke, who is moving from one position to another. And I don't know what subject is she's gonna be teaching. If she's teaching language arts, it's not so bad. But if she's teaching mathematics or middle school or another level, she's gonna need that training along with the new people. And we have to make sure that if we offer in the learning distance, that our teachers are prepared. And somehow I assume that everybody was prepared, because that's what's happening in our district. So I'm really glad that this person brought it up, because it opens our minds to set up, to make sure we work and setting up a schedule. And I would like to have a copy of the schedule. What are they gonna be learning before they start teaching? And we do have time before they go in. So it's just planning it better. It's not like when they come, the first time they come, they start teaching. There is time for that. We just have to use the time very wisely to make sure that we get the best training for them too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to learn about the professional development days that we have at the beginning of the year?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes. Is it possible to share the calendar, Tony? Thank you.
Sure. So our returning teachers work 186 days. Our new teachers work 188 days. And our new teachers start their year with new teacher orientation, which traditionally has been 2 full days of professional development. And I know our panelists can see in the chat that Ms. White has indicated that as soon as we move forward with direction from the board, the union can start formal negotiations with the district on what next year will look like. So I'm going to share the calendar. So you can see the 18th and 19th designated as new teacher orientation, the 20th as the returning RTA unit member start date. The 20th and 25th are slated for classroom prep days. The 21st is the welcome back and all day district PD. And then the 24th is a full day of site PD. So Superintendent Sudaria mentioned that moving the start date back didn't impact the work year, because essentially we shifted the entire calendar back. So as we scroll through, you see that the last date of school is on June 16th, which is a later end date than we're traditionally used to.
Through the chair.
Yes.
One of the things that I brought up last year was this whole thing around PD and the fact that it's not mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
So I would ask again for that attendance be taken at the professional development opportunities, so that we have a better idea of who participates and who doesn't participate. Because, I mean, you know, experience tells me that people will say, I didn't have a chance to participate. No, I didn't get PD. But in fact, it's been offered and they opt out of it because we can't mandate certain aspects of it. So I think it would be good to keep a record of who is actually involved in the PD.
I'm assuming the teachers know who they can reach out to if they need like more support in like just either using technology or, right? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Just
We
to
do have another speaker, and I'd also like to remind speakers that you can only speak once on a topic. So if you've raised your hand again, you're not going to be able to speak on this topic. If you want to speak on another item on the agenda, then please wait until we're on that item.
And just to respond to Vice President Wilson, we do keep attendance for every optional and mandatory professional development.
So do we have any new speakers, Trustee Fitch?
Yeah, we do have one, Galaxy J7 Star.
Be able to speak now? Can you state your name, please? Galaxy J7 Star, can you speak your name, please? Can't hear you.
Maybe they have a bad connection.
Yeah,
Some of the issues with this machine.
they're muted actually, but I'm not able to unmute them.
All right, so. Okay, so there are no other speakers for this, Trustee Fitch?
There's one more, but she spoke already.
Okay.
So she's gonna have to wait for another agenda item.
All right, so actually, this was a report, so we're actually moving into the actionable item, which is 9B, the reopening plan. And that's based on what we just learned, correct?
Yes.
Is there any more you're gonna add? Okay.
No.
All right, so this is where we take action, and I don't know if maybe we have a speaker for this item since it is separate.
Yeah, I don't know if Diana Krippendorf wants to speak on this item, this separate item.
Diana, did you want to speak? Diana Krippendorf, Ms. Krippendorf?
She's currently on mute.
She is. Do you want to unmute Ms. Krippendorf?
Okay, we'll have to move on if we don't hear anything.
There is another speaker.
Okay.
Oh, can I say, I was on the
there she
other
is.
topic. Thank you.
Oh, this is 9.
I know. Yeah, so I'm sorry. I was for the other topic, so I can't speak. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Who's the other speaker?
We have
Yes.
a few speakers. Sue Allen.
Yep. Sue, you should be able to speak. Unmute.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I was just gonna recommend that we have a couple of days of classroom preparation in there. And can those be turned into technology PD kinds of days instead, since teachers aren't gonna need to put up bulletin boards and arrange furniture and all that kind of stuff.
Beautiful.
Just a thought. Thank you.
That sounds like a good thought to me. So Superintendent Sidaria, can you?
What we'll need to do, and I think it was referenced in the chat and Tony also highlighted, is that once we get approval of the direction that we're going to go in the fall, then we would be able to proceed with negotiation. Because classroom preparation is a negotiable item.
Good. So potentially be able to find opportunities after all for some PD. Awesome. Some additional PD that's required.
Tricia,
Yes.
can I say something before you move on? And we have to make sure that, we, that the teachers, I know all of them do, but if there are circumstances where when we want to participate in something else that is not the teacher, make sure that it happens after school. And I'm talking about, the protest. I believe it was during teaching hours, and that's okay with me. I love that you supported this, but make sure that all those events do not interfere with the teaching hours of our students. That's it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And that was during lunchtime. So we were able to squeeze that in during non-teaching hours.
Thank you.
Yes, but we will be mindful.
All right. I will then entertain a motion to approve.
One more speaker.
Oh, okay.
Jesucita Riviera.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so I would like for you guys to entertain the motion to approve the superintendent's and the task force decision for distance learning. I actually felt very supported. I found many opportunities given through the district and my own opportunities as well from colleagues to expand my abilities technologically wise. I also found great resources. I was able to get wonderful resources through REF. They fully funded any and all distance learning projects. I was able to get, oops, sorry, my phone. I was able to get iPad Pro. I was able to get a document camera. I have so many resources in my classroom. I mean, at home, I have my kitchen, half of it is my home classroom. It is difficult to teach distance, but it's very safe for the staff and for the students. Most of the teachers in Ravenswood have very good intentions, if not all. We'll go above and beyond. I met with students sometimes at 8 o'clock because the internet service was better at 8. That's the flexibility that a lot of teachers have. And now I'm not saying to put an MOU that we will meet at 8 o'clock. That's just something that that we teachers care so much to educate the children. Again, though, the safety first, and I know that there'll be internet issues, but we love the students so much. I'm excited to actually go on this new venture to start online to see how I can build community. I've already have a wealth of a repertoire that I'm trying to put in place to see what the first days are going to look like. And my time is running out. I can go on forever. So anyway, I just please approve distance learning. Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing. It seems like, we have different experiences, and let's just get all our teachers to feel like they've had the same opportunities available and resources. So, and I'm sure we will. All right, so I will entertain a motion to approve item 9B.
Through the chair.
Yes.
I'll make the motion that we approve of the school reopening plan to be submitted to the County Office of Education.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
President Polito.
Aye.
Vice President Wilson.
Yes.
Trustee Fitch.
Aye.
Trustee Guyona.
Aye.
Trustee Shibomahi.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. That takes us to our last item, and that is the Board of Trustees Subcommittee for Naming of Schools recommendations for both discussion and action. So I believe that is Trustee Wilson and Trustee Gona Mendoza who will be presenting.
Yes. Actually, the superintendent is probably going to present, but I will start by saying thank you very much to the members of the community that participated in the task force. We had lengthy discussions. We've gotten a lot of feedback from people and a lot of input from people. And so this evening, we have before you a list of names, except that I don't see it. But anyway, there's a list of names that was included in the packet. And we are looking to further the discussion and have us land on, hopefully, land on some names this evening.
Thank you.
Guyana, did you want to mention anything?
Yeah, I just want to say that thank you to all the community members, kind of piggyback on Ms. Wilson, that I did like how we discussed, and even though at some points, you know, we didn't agree completely, well, I didn't have to agree because they were agreeing each other, but it was very respectful process, and I thank everyone for that.
That's great news. Thank you for sharing that.
So, trustees, as they mentioned, Trustee Sharifa Wilson and Maria Elena Guyana Mendoza facilitated the school naming committee that was comprised of 13 community members and Ravenswood certificated and classified personnel. The purpose of the naming committee was to discuss the renaming of Belhaven School located at 415 Ivy Drive in Menlo Park and Castaño School located at 2695 Fordham Street in East Palo Alto, and to make a recommendation to the board. The consideration to rename the schools is a result of the decision to merge Willow Oaks and Belhaven School on the Belhaven campus, and the Brentwood Academy and Castaño School merging on the Castaño campus, creating two new schools when the communities come together. So the goal of the school naming committee was to create names for both sites to reflect the communities coming together, while also creating names that reflect the history and highlighting instructional programs and offerings. So the committee members created the following list of names to explore. And the list of names for 415 Ivy Drive were United Menlo Park Elementary, Ravenswood Elementary, Ivy Elementary, Bell Oaks, Belhaven Willow Oaks, Willow Haven, Bell Oaks, Jose Ibarra Willow Haven, Jose Ivan Ibarra Academy. The names listed for 2695 Fordham Street. The list of names range from Betano, which is a merging of both names, Aloni School of the Arts, Castaño Academy School of the Arts, Castaño Home of Michelle Obama School of the Arts, Castaño School of the Arts. The committee then took a poll to determine what were the top two names that resonated with the committee the most. And the results of the polls are reflected to where the 415 Ivy Drive site, top two names were Jose Ivan Ibarra Academy, Jose Ibarra Willow Haven. And the top two names for the 2695 Fordham Street that rose to the top were Castaño School of the Arts, Castaño Home of Michelle Obama School of the Arts. So it is the recommendation for the board to consider the top two names for each of the sites.
And through the chair, if I could add, one of the things that that I did in framing the conversation was to say that we were trying to make an effort to create that part of the changing of the names or the new naming was an effort to kind of rebrand the district, if you will, so that, and then bringing together the Willow and the Belhaven campuses, we want to try to merge the culture at the school. So one wouldn't feel like, oh, you're coming into my school or you're coming into the other school. And then on the Castaño site, I didn't even realize how much there was behind that School of the Arts. And there's a lot that goes with that designation. And so that was one of the reasons why that name rose to the top. I don't know whether Superintendent Sadara, you want to share that, because I'm not sure everybody on the board is aware of that. So you might want to do that.
Right. So in 2016, Castaño School became one of few schools in the nation to be identified as a turnaround art school. And so there is funding to be able to provide professional development, and along with that, artists that come to support the integration of visual and performing arts through the regular classrooms and integrate the visual performing arts in regular day instruction. And I don't have the number right now off the top of my head of the number of schools in the nation, but it's like in the 30s. I myself had the chance to go to the White House and represent Castaño School when we first were identified as a turnaround art school. And then Viviana Espinosa carried the torch to eventually grow the program out. So we're now Castaño School, which is a turnaround art school, actually showcased some best practices, and she and a group of team members were able to present to other turnaround art schools across the nation. Additionally, utilizing a turnaround art school to address inequities and, more importantly, be responsive to the different cultures of the students that occupy Castaño School. And it's a program that we would like to be able to expand and have other schools be able to take on learning practices and teaching practices.
Thank you.
Oh, let me say one more piece. It started under the administration of the Obamas, and so Michelle Obama took the lead on that. It's now, I believe, under the Kennedy Center. So hence, Castaño School, home of Michelle Obama School of the Arts.
Thank you. So I will leave it open for Board of Trustees to give their maybe first impressions or ask any clarifying questions or feedback to what's been presented to us.
If I could just add one more comment.
Sure.
I tried to consistently say to the committee that the task force was to make a recommendation, but that ultimately it is the board who will make the final decision about the name. Because I didn't want people to get so locked into this is what we propose, so don't think of anything else.
Thank you. So given that Trustee Gowan and Trustee Wilson worked on this committee and they kind of probably had a lot of discussion over it, I would love to hear from Trustee Fitch and Trustee Shabomahin if you all have any maybe initial thoughts or.
Yes.
Yes.
Through the chair. First, thank you for everyone for working on this, and I'll start with my opinions or thoughts broadly. And I think this is very difficult for me. And I had a similar feeling when we were thinking about the Cesar Chavez Ravenswood Middle School, and I have a difficult time with naming our schools after people. And the reason for that, even though they have historical significance or even a long time, paid a long time contribution to our specific community in many ways, it's difficult for me to justify uplifting one over another, particularly given the numerous people who have, really made impact on our district and on our community. So I just want to start there. So this is a difficult decision for me. I think about how can we as a board or as a district create policy and norms that will honor our deceased faculty members or students. I think about how can we continue to elevate the names of people, of our heroes and pioneers who've been lost over history, right? So there have been who incorporated the city, who helped it grew, who started the district, who put their sweat, tears, and work into it over many, many, many years to the point of we're still here today existing. And I would feel it would be remiss of me to ignore those people in the impact that they've made on the district that we might be unaware of right now, right? Because we weren't there in that moment many years ago. So I just want to put that out there. So looking at our district in a comprehensive way, I'm looking at all the names of our school and what I want those names to represent. I want them to be things that people can align with or identify with or somehow see themselves have value to their personal lives. I want it to represent the various demographics of our student population. in the district in an equitable way. And those are things I'm thinking about just as we start the conversation. So I still don't have like an idea for the name, but that's where I'm starting.
Oh, sorry, I was just talking. Thank you for those comments. I think they're very helpful for allowing us to understand your perspective, and I think it's obviously valuable to the conversation. Trustee Fitch, is there something you want to say or?
Nothing generative really to add to the conversation. I think Trustee Shaboameen makes some really good, valid points. I don't have strong feelings on the names one way or another, but I am appreciative of the community input. I think that's really important, and I think it's important that that gets that's an important part of this process. But I think Trustee Shaboameen brings up some good points. We want to make sure that these names are inclusive and representative of our community.
Thank you. So
Yeah, can I just add something?
Oh, okay.
So we got a lot of, again, and I'm sure everybody got the same emails. We got a lot of emails making a recommendation for a name. The other part though is that I also received a lot of feedback about people feeling like, why are you even changing the names? Why are you taking away the history of our community? Which has some validity. You know, it kind of made me take a step back and think, wait a minute. So I just want to put that out there that, you know, some people are saying, why change it anyway? So.
That's a valid point too, Trustee Wilson. Thank you for sharing that. For me, I was thinking if we were to change the name and we weren't to keep the historical name, it was so to give the schools an opportunity to merge and start anew, create something new that the school cultures could merge around, the communities that feed into it could come around. And a lot of these names are tied to the identity of one school or another. And it goes to Trustee Shaboameen's point of something that not only will speak to the community as whole, but will transcend time, right? That will be long lasting as far as people understanding the root and the meaning of it. So yeah, so I was thinking that we were going to be exploring names that kind of allowed the merging and the newness to kind of give birth, right? But it seems like they're all very much, with the exception of a few, they're all very much tied to their existing identity. I will say that I know that Castaño has some roots of like Native American background, and I think that in the way that I fought for the middle school, I feel actually strongly about that as well. That's why for me, like Ohlone, for example, Ohlone, the School of Arts, right? It's a new name that merges two school identities, but it still doesn't kind of erase the history of, right, Castaño, what that means to the area and to the community. So I mean, this is a difficult conversation, and I think I agree with the other trustees. I mean, I don't necessarily know that I have the perfect answer right now, but I don't know that based on these recommendations, like, are we? And I don't know that I feel comfortable being able to vote and fully get behind right now what I'm seeing before me. And so I guess the other question to explore is Trustee Wilson's point. Do we consider keeping the historical name? What does that mean? And what does that mean for the schools that are being closed, right? So what does that mean for Willow? What does that mean for Brentwood? Although I will say that even when our schools have stopped operating as schools, they always refer to their school name, right? We have Flood, right? Flood has actually been demolished. Until this day, we'll say the Flood site, right? So I think for the community, especially community that's been here forever, it never changes for us as far as what we reference it as. And even when they close, we know the name of that site, right? So I even as the primary school moves in tomorrow, I will forever be referring to that as the Brentwood site, right? Um, that's how it's ingrained in us, especially the ones that have been here for a very long time. So um does that mean we have a need to change the names, or do we allow every site to maintain their identity? That's a question, right? And how does the board feel about that? um I'm open to that discussion, but if we are going to change the name and that's the direction the board wants to go in, I go back to my point of wanting to find a name that is representative of our community, that's inclusive, and that will transcend time no matter what. So that's my perspective, and I don't know if anyone, based on kind of the new element that Trustee Wilson introduced, feels any type of way about that. But right now is a great time to discuss that.
Through the chair, I actually, to your point, I actually don't feel comfortable moving forward with the suggestions presented right now, given that need to, if we change the names, to want them to be truly representative of all the things that have been mentioned here by trustees so far: the history, the people, the land, the culture, the students, like all those things. And while I definitely, and I know this is sensitive because we have a submission here with one of our loved and respected former staff members, rest in peace, Mr. Ibarra. I don't feel comfortable right now changing the names to one of these options here presented tonight, given all that's been said.
Okay, so does other board members feel the same or different from what Trustee Chabot Mahin just shared?
Through Chair, I would like to ask Ms. Chabot Mahin, do you feel comfortable with any of the names? I want to make sure I understood right. Any of the names of the schools, can we go to one school if we agree on one, maybe leave the other one for later, or compromises, anything?
I think, thank you for that question, and through the chair. I think that if we are going to take this moment to change a name of something that has historical significance, right, to our district, then it should be for a big reason. And I believe that reason was, to Trustee Polito's point, something that represents the merging of these two different entities or cultures coming together. And right now, I'm not sure that I see a name that really
okay,
yeah, so that and yeah, and yeah, and it's not that I don't think that we inherently, I could be wrong, I don't think that we had an inherent, like, objection to the current names, right? I think the reason this was brought to the table was we were trying to curate this new culture given the circumstances, right, that from the mergers. So if we were to pause and say, let's think about this more, I'm not sure that it would be a problem to keep the names that we have. I could be wrong, but yeah.
Trustee Wilson?
Yes, through the chair. I was gonna say that one of the other things that somebody pointed out to me was, okay, so what are you saying? Are you saying that you're never gonna go back to Willow? Is the district giving up that site? Are you saying that, which is a good point? I was like, ooh, I didn't think of that. If we go and we change the name, are we saying that we're never gonna have our Willow school back?
Or Brentwood for that matter.
Or Brentwood for that matter, exactly. So that's why I started thinking, okay, so now we're back to when maybe not changing it. But I would be open to us having some further discussion, and I'm comfortable with us not making a decision tonight.
That's an extremely valid point, that one you just mentioned, Trustee Wilson, and I hadn't considered. We were thinking about creating a new culture, right? And we were thinking a name would be representative, but you're absolutely right. I think if anything, our board and our superintendent, we're looking to grow, right? We've currently had to deal with declining enrollment, but our intent is to turn that around and be able to go back to those numbers that were flourishing, which mean that at some point we would be able to be using those properties for, you know, our students, right? And what happens when, and then how does the schools that were changing their name and then you reopen another school and they go back to their original name, right? It's kind of like maybe a school site would feel a loss. So for example, if we changed Castano to, what is that, Brentano? I don't know if that's Brentwood plus Castano. Is that what that was? You know, if you have Brentano, for example, and then you take Brentwood back, then the only one that really lost their identity was Castano in that transaction, because Brentwood would go back to being Brentwood. I'm actually also supportive of not necessarily having to make this decision tonight and being able to preserve the history of the names that are currently there and maybe do a deeper dive to see if and when and how we would move forward with any changes, and give it more time to be able to do that if we choose to, or not, or choose to leave the schools named as they are.
And through the chair, just to get a sense of timeline, I guess a regular board meeting is not until August 11th, and the first day of school, August 26th, and staff returning, I can't remember, based on the calendar that was shown to you. But just to be mindful. Tony, when is staff returning? August
18th is new teachers, and returning RTA and CSEA start on August 20th.
Yes. So we want to get our system set up too with the name. So the naming does impact some things in regards to operations. And then most importantly, our principals, Ms. Sal Masuda, principal at 415 Ivy Drive, and Robin Pang, the principal at 2695 Fordham, to be able to rally the troops around a name.
Okay, so then let me ask this question. Who is opposed to keeping the names as is? Who would have an issue with saying, let's just preserve the names for what they are? We don't anticipate forever losing our other sites, so allow each site to maintain their name or keep their name.
So should we have the time to listen to a speaker? So we have any speakers?
Yeah, we do, but I want to get a feel of where the board's at right now. So
I would like to decide if we keep it for the rest of the time, or if we're gonna make a change, look into it, and if it doesn't, if for some reason there's no compromises or anything, then but we don't have much time. That's the problem, to go back and meet again. So I'm listening to Mr. Daria's point of view too, that we need to have that. So if there was time, it will be fine, let's keep it. Because I do feel too, like one of the reasons that we decided the new names is for the new community. And for me, an example, the Castaño School also kind of bring out that they teach arts over there, because many people do not know it. They don't know what wonderful things are there, and we're trying to sell our schools, and if we don't put it out there.
So I have maybe another idea. What if we start with the current names? Bellhaven, Castaño School. And then once the school communities come together, they develop the school name together once the community is together on campus.
Well, that's why I want to get a feel of the board first. Do we feel like we are comfortable keeping the names as they are? Or do we want to pause this tonight and then allow for other ways to figuring out what the names could be in the future? That's really kind of the two options. So we have to provide that direction before staff rolls anything out. So I heard from Trustee Wilson, were you in favor of keeping the names as they were? Okay, and then were you also in favor of that, trustee Chabot-Mahin? Or were you, okay. So trustee Fitch and trustee Gauna, can you give me clarity if you feel comfortable leaving the names as is?
Yeah.
Or you want to just continue exploring and not make a decision tonight, but continue exploring?
I would prefer to take action today.
Right, so what one of those two actions do you prefer?
One of the, say it again, what names do you mean? Are you talking about the names or what one of which two actions are you talking
So
about?
the
Sorry,
first action would be to keep the names as they are. And the second action would be to not determine that tonight and to continue exploring it at a future date.
okay, so either way it is not taking action at all, right? Keeping
Well,
the names
yeah, we would
will be
potentially.
temporary then, according to what I hear. I want to make sure that I understand it right. So it will be to keeping it. I think that's not my preference. My preference will be to take action today. Not renaming the schools today.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
Trustee Fitch?
Yeah, I actually like Superintendent Sidaria's idea about just keeping the names as they are now and having the communities come together, develop bonds, and, you know, maybe further look into a name that represents the community that they end up building when they're building a community together.
Okay, so I agree with trustee Chabot-Mahin and trustee Wilson about being able to preserve the names as they are today, because although I like trustee Superintendent Sidaria's idea, the naming goes past that school community. It's not just the teachers, it's the community at large, right? It's parents, it's students, it's community members who have been here for an extended amount of time and are equally invested. So it's multi-layered when I think about renaming that school. And for me, if we're gonna of course give a voice to staff, we have to equally give a voice to all the other stakeholders we have, which I know is going to be a long, extensive process. It's not going to be something we're going to be able to do overnight. So that's where I'm at. And it seems like the majority of the board feels comfortable moving forward as such. So before we take a formal vote, there are speakers, and yeah.
Yeah, we have a number of speakers. As a reminder, each speaker gets 2 minutes. The first speaker we have is Jesuita Rivera.
Hi. So, hello again. Good evening. Had not Castaño been on burial ground, I would really not care what the name would be. It is Native American burial ground. When in the 1800s, when Elijah Wood arrived at our site to gain riches, naming the area Ravenswood, from him, that's how we have Ravenswood. When he landed here, he saw abandoned land, but it wasn't abandoned. It was a burial ground. Had he investigated, he would have seen the earth mound had sacred bodies to the Ohlone. To the Ohlone, when their people pass on, they, in essence, don't die. They are honored. And when the school is named in an attempt to preserve them, it should stay that name. I actually truly do love the name Ohlone Academy or Ohlone School of the Arts. But of course, Castaño is also reminiscent of the Ohlones. Either one, I'm totally happy with. I'm very grateful that the board took into consideration the task force, the name, to preserve and honor the Ohlone. But again, if you guys choose to keep Castaño and Belhaven, I'm down with what you guys decide there. To me, Belhaven embodies Jose Ivan Ibarra. That is, when I think of Belhaven, I think of him. And I also believe that most community members do the same. However you do, if you do change it, I think it would be a nice thing to honor him and name Belhaven after him. Either of the choices that were the top two, I think sit well One thing about the Castaño home of Michelle Obama, I totally understand why you want to put Michelle Obama, but it seems kind of forced, and I feel like the names take away from each other. I hope I made sense. Thank you so much for giving me your ear.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Yeah, the next speaker I have is Lupe Ibarra.
Okay, should be able to speak.
Yes, hi, good evening. So I asked myself, why Jose Ivan Ibarra? So why would a emerging campus, why should it be named after a leader? And so these are the things I came up with. He was a role model, not just to his students, but to the families, his fellow teachers, to many volunteers that came into his classrooms. He showed them that there was nothing that could stop them from accomplishing things. So to set their minds, excuse me. He was an advocate. He advocated not only for students, but also for their parents. He was a long-term negotiating chair for the Ravenswood RTA, advocating for the teachers and making their wishes known. He was a leader. He led others in the right path by showing them the fun in teaching and the ability to engage all children. He was an outspoken person. He used his voice to make himself heard, to ensure that the children and teachers of Ravenswood received what they deserved. He was he accepted everyone no matter what their ability was. He was understanding. He related to many children and families he worked with because too, he was an immigrant to this country from Mexico at the age of 6. He was open-minded. He was open to new ideas. He embraced changes. He knew changes needed to happen in order for the district to meet the needs of all children. He was soft-hearted, cared for everyone, and did his best to make sure everyone received the best, his students, the teachers, and his campus. He was creative. He created an educational environment where children loved to come to learn. There was board members, teachers, volunteers, parents would go into his classroom to observe his work. He was a dedicated educator. He taught children the love of learning. He made it fun for them. Students left kindergarten reading. So I ask why? Why wouldn't you name a school after a community leader? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Yeah, the next speaker I have is Lauren Machorowicz. Makowitz, sorry.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Makrowitz. I'm a former Bellhaven teacher. I would like to advocate for the renaming of the Bellhaven and merging Willow Oak School to honor Jose Ivan Ibarra. During my 7 years that I taught at Bellhaven, I had the privilege of being Mr. Ibarra's buddy teacher. We would bring our classes together weekly to do literacy, math, art, PE, and other activities. We were with each other in our classroom environments with our students on a regular basis. So I was able to see firsthand how dedicated he was to his students. And when I say his students, I mean all of the Ravenswood students, his former students, but students in all grade levels, students that transferred within the district, and students who came with their siblings to school events. He treated all students in a way that made them feel encouraged, safe, and empowered to learn. Jose was passionate about teaching. It is not just passion that makes an amazing teacher. It was his constant drive to instill a love of learning and to see the students be as successful as possible. If he saw something that could be improved, he strove to make his teaching more effective. That shows reflection, humility, and a true love for the students. I cannot think of a better way to honor this incredible teacher who dedicated himself for over 20 years to the students of the Ravenswood community than to rename the school after him. Jose's commitment to faithfully and effectively serving the students and families within Ravenswood is something for us as teachers to celebrate, but also an opportunity as a community to commemorate him. I highly encourage the board to adopt the name Jose Ivan Ibarra Academy so that the students and community of Ravenswood can continue to be inspired by this incredible and extraordinary teacher. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Yeah, we have Nicole Sabragia.
Okay, Nicole, you can unmute and speak.
I have a prepared statement, but I'm not going to read it. I just, I would, as you guys know, would really like you to consider naming Bellhaven after Mr. Ibarra. He has been the heart of our school, and he continues to be 7 months after his passing. And being on the committee was very challenging. But I would really like you to take the committee's advice or recommendation, because as challenging as it was, you put together a task, you put together a subcommittee, and I would like you to honor the subcommittee that you created and honor our recommendation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Yeah, I have Sue Allen.
Hello, I have been part of Ravenswood District since 1996 and was most of that time at Bellhaven and knew Jose Ibarra very well and admired, loved him, fabulous teacher. And I echo the things the previous people have said, except I'm concerned that if the purpose of renaming the school is to bring the two communities together, then naming it after a Bellhaven teacher, I don't think serves that purpose. I also have concerns about naming schools after people rather than after the community. 20 years from now, nobody will be there probably who knew Jose, and it will be hard to perpetuate the reason for naming the school after him. So that's my concern there. I really like either Willow Haven or Bell Oaks as a combination of the neighborhoods. On the Castaños side, I have less feeling about that, except I appreciate Jesusita's statements about Ohlone, and it would be a wonderful name for the school to honor that, except that I don't know how many of you know, there is already an Ohlone school in Palo Alto district, which is also in 94303 zip code. And I'm afraid having two schools so close together with the same zip code in different districts would be very confusing for people and they're in different counties, but at state level, people Googling things, I think that would be a big confusion problem. The Ohlone school in Palo Alto has been there for, I don't know, 40 years that I've been in the community. So I would hope that you would not name schools after people, and for the conflict problem with Ohlone, not name it after Ohlone. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Yeah, we have Rhonda White.
So in order to get more than 2 minutes, I'm going to speak as RTA president. So I just want to start off by saying the Rhonda and me and my love for Jose says rename the school Jose Ibarra Elementary School. But I also have to think about the union that he fought so hard for, and how would he feel if us naming the school is causing this much conflict after him. So whatever the board decides, we'll have to live with. But if nothing, would we be able to dedicate the library and name the library Jose Ivan Library? Because I do believe the city of Menlo Park is giving that to us. So I could say more and more and more, but I think the people before us have said it, and it is a hard decision on honoring Jose, honoring someone else, remembering the past, remembering the future. But I think the big thing Jose would say just to make sure that whatever decision we make, that we are bringing the two cultures and the two communities together, and that our teachers are teaching with passion and with love to our kids and our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
I have Grandma Fancy.
Hello. So it's Nicole.
Nicole.
And I was wondering, why are we renaming so many of the schools in Ravenswood? That is pretty much our identity. These schools have been named their names for a very long time. My condolences for the loss of Mr. Ibarra, but I too think that it should not be named after a person. If so, you know, there are many names that came before him and laid foundation for Belhaven and the community. If you want to go into people doing great things for that school, you know, such as Warren Heyman, Mr. Richardson, Miss McLean, Miss Spikes. So there are lots of names that could be named for Belhaven. The merge of Bell Oaks, that's wonderful. Also, Belhaven is the name for the Menlo Park community. That's who we are. We are Belhaven Elementary School. And I think it would be such a disservice to take that name, to name it after a person.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
I have helping you transform your love life.
Is that a Zoom bomb?
Don't know, but they can speak.
We've been hacked.
Maybe. All right. Well, I'm gonna depromote them. They can raise their hand again if you made a mistake.
All right, next speaker, please.
I have Dean Larson.
Dean, you can speak. Might have lost him. Dean? Yeah, he's no longer in the list. Not sure what happened.
All right. I have Gail Gigi Wilkerson.
Okay, Gail, you can talk. Unmute yourself, please.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I want to reiterate what some of the other people say about naming places after people. I did bring up another person's name and I didn't hear her name mentioned, Onetta Harris. I know someone took offense to the fact that she has another building already named after her, but she was also all those things and more and above what they said about the nice man, Jose Ibarra. I never knew him, but I knew Onetta Harris and a lot of other people also. I've been in the community since 1955. I did a lot of walking to Belhaven, and there's still a lot of us in this community, and I don't know why when I speak to someone, they never heard about the renaming of the schools, just like they renamed Green Oaks. And I attended that school. And why do you have to change the names? I don't understand that. Why can't they remain the same? I believe in people being comfortable in school, but I was very comfortable with Belhaven. When my father moved down from San Francisco when I was 5 years old. Why do they have to be changed? Why can't they just stay the same? A lot of people would appreciate that. A lot of people that I've talked to. And I think that if you're worried about the community being upset about it, they are upset, and I think they should be notified beforehand. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Claudia Perez.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh.
we can hear you.
Awesome, thanks. Well, hello, my name is Claudia, and I was on the district renaming committee. It was a very challenging process, and I request the board please pick from the two names that were recommended. On a personal note, I am also the mother to 2 children at the Haven site. My daughter was in Mr. Ibarra's last kindergarten class. I want our school site named after him because he was a great teacher, poured his heart out for Ravenswood children. He never gave up on any child, not caring their color, disability, or any of that. He was there to always help and teach. Always very welcoming and very passionate about his work. I have attended Ravenswood myself since I was a child. I ask that you please just rename the Haven site in honor of my daughter's kindergarten teacher, Mr. Ibarra. And another note, I know many families from the Willow Oak site, including my little brother and sister and nephew, and they do not mind and have any problem with the school being named after Mr. Ibarra. Students coming from Willow have and will continue to benefit from all the work he has done for Ravenswood. And thank you for your time and thank you for letting me even speak, but that's just where I'm at the moment.
Thank you for sharing. Next speaker, please.
Stephanie, Dean Larson joined us. He was able to join. Can he speak next?
Yeah.
Okay.
And can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you, board members, and thank you, Superintendent Sudaria, for all you do for the staff, teachers, and especially the students of Ravenswood City School District. I'm asking for your support in renaming the newly combined school of Willow Oaks and Belhaven to either Jose Ibarra Academy or Jose Ibarra Willow Haven. Having a school named after one of the community's own members would give pride to the students and to the staff. Although he is no longer with us, Jose never gave up hope that Ravenswood could offer students the best education and the best possible access to opportunities. Either name recommended would create a special place for the students. Should you choose Jose Ibarra Willow Haven, you would honor Willow Oaks with including part of their name, and you would honor Belhaven with part of that name, and then you would celebrate a new name, which would celebrate the 2 schools coming together as well. So it's difficult to think of a more fitting original name of the new school, but hopefully you will consider this when you cast your vote. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Carolyn Bauscher.
You should be able to unmute and speak. There you are.
Me now?
Yes.
Oh, great. Hi, my name is Carolyn Bauscher, and
I wanted to talk about Jose because I was a volunteer in his class for many years, but it looks like you guys are leaning toward the direction of not naming a school after a single person, which I understand, and I appreciate all of your thoughts and concerns. I would say I kept my hand up because if you're not going to name a school after him, I think you can see there's a lot of community support for such an amazing teacher, mentor, community member. And I'd love it if you could consider having some sort of, I think Rhonda's idea of the library be great, or the playground, or, you know, an award in his name or something to just memorialize him, because he's really an exceptional person and a great, he exemplified community service. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
We don't have any more hands raised.
Okay. Thank you for everyone who shared.
Oops, there is one.
Oh, okay.
Julie Gasso. Oh, name disappeared. Wait.
Julie?
Julie?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for the last minute hand raise. I'm Julie Guaspari. I'm currently assistant principal at Cesar Chavez Ravenswood Middle School. I had the wonderful opportunity to join the Belhaven community last year and get to work alongside of Jose Ibarra. I completely understand the difficult conversations that are going on about the reasons to name a school after someone, and also the idea of wanting to have a name that represents the merging of the community. And along those lines, these were just my thoughts. Jose was the heartbeat of Belhaven, not because he embodied Belhaven, but because he embodied the values of One Ravenswood. Integrity. He modeled transparency and honesty to build trust, relationship, and community. Student-centered. He ensured students were at the center of every decision we made. Innovation. He promoted and celebrated the creativity and curiosity that sparks learning and growth in all of us. Excellence. He held high expectations for all of us and for all students. Empowerment. He worked in partnership with children, families, and our community to encourage self-advocacy and engage in decision-making. Respect. He built upon the strength of our diversity and individuality to make an equitable and just community. Jose truly inspired people to come together as a community. I witnessed this both in his classroom community and our school community. It was never about, this is what Belhaven does. It was always, what do we want to create for our community? Whatever name the Jose Iman Ibarra Academy, the Jose Ibarra Willow Haven Committee, will keep Jose's spirit embedded in our hearts, enable him to continue hope, inspiring us all to come together as one Ravenswood community. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. And I believe that closes the comments, Trustee Fitch.
Yep, I don't see any more hands raised.
Just to some of the speakers' points, that we should do something to honor Jose Ibarra. We did create a proclamation and we designated a day that's known as now the Jose Ibarra Day. And we actually also talked about, and I don't know where it got left off, and maybe you could tell me, Superintendent Sadaria, about, we talked about the possibilities of naming something on the school site after him. We were talking about like a garden. I remember at the time there's something like, oh, there's like a garden area. Maybe we could, you know, put a bench and put his name in memory of. I know there was different ideas thrown around, and I don't know if that ever developed into anything concrete, or if you can share anything about that early.
There hasn't been a name. We haven't identified a space to name Jose Ibarra after, but I do know that there's been funding. Many people have donated to the foundation in the honor of Jose Ivan Ibarra. And there's been agreement that we would like to upgrade the garden at Belhaven, because that was also one of the things that he loved to do.
Right.
So there is funding to be able to bring in support to build the garden.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I recall from our conversation when he had first passed around that time. So regardless of how the board determines to move forward, we'd like for that to kind of just be explored and followed up on. So I take this conversation back to the board. I know we left off with the board feeling like it would be best, the majority of the board felt that it would be best to leave the names intact and then allow each, school site to keep its name, be referenced as such. And then there were some board members who felt slightly differently, and I don't know if anyone has changed their perspective, but right now is really the time to determine it before we put it to vote. So I will leave the floor open to the board.
So through the chair.
Yes.
So the only thing so I like the idea of keeping the names the way that they are, except for that I do think that we need to maximize the opportunity for the School of the Arts. We need to maximize the opportunity to make that a highlight so that people understand that, we're trying to create a draw, and I just think adding the name School of the Arts to it.
So Castaño School of the Arts. Right, okay. So it's just to add to that name, but keep its name, but emphasize the School of the Arts. Other board members?
I could get on board with that.
Okay.
And through the chair, my opinion has not changed from what I expressed earlier regarding this specifically about Castaño School of the Arts. I can get on board with that because it's not a true name change per se. It's an addition, which is still in itself a change, but it's not a big change. But I would ask, while I recognize it is a School of the Arts in a sense now, will it be so in 10 years? Or will someone have to come back later and take that off? So it's just something I would think about. And I wonder if there are other ways we can highlight the fact that we have this concentration or around the arts there at the school without necessarily adding it to the name. Again, just as a fail-safe for the future and what the program will be or look like 10 years down the line. And then one more thing to your point, Trustee Polito, about exploring other ways, again, to honor those pioneers and heroes and staff and students who have moved on. I would like for the staff to explore that for Jose Ibarra for sure, and also others as well. So how can we systemically do this in a way where if we lose someone, we can honor them also.
Thank you. So I think that's a really valid point that you brought up, the first part of Castaño School of the Arts. That's kind of, you kind of make it a forever name, right? And what happens when there are changes and then they have to go back and say, hey, it's no longer School of the Arts. So for that reason, I was actually open to School of the Arts because I do think it's like, it kind of sets it apart and it allows people to gauge interest. But we're thinking about permanent names that kind of, once again, transcend time. I feel like School of the Arts is probably overcommitting ourselves to a model that may not work in, 10 years time, 5, whatever amount of time it is. Trustee Wilson, you're smiling. Like, I feel like there's.
Yeah, I got that. And then, that's a valid point because you're right. Right now it's School of the Arts, but we don't know in 7 years and 10 years. So that's why I was smiling. It's like, I like when there's this dialogue and, it's like, and we're flexible enough. So I could live with just leaving everything the way that it is.
Trustee Gona Mendoza, is there anything you feel right now? It seems like the majority of the board is leaning towards keeping the names as they are. So taking action on leaving the names as they are. Is there anything you want to share?
Somehow inside of my head, I'm thinking that if we name Castaño School of the Arts, which is not a big thing, we're just adding it. It's like we're committing to it, but also whoever comes next will continue because arts is a very important thing for our kids. It helps them to be creative. It's more fun and they're still learning through the arts. So I think I'm not thinking exactly like you that it may disappear later, but to the contrary, I mean, everybody's brain works different. And to me, is thinking like we are stealing it for other people to continue doing that with the arts. And it's education. It's not like we're taking time away, you know, from the academics to teach art, because you the moment you teach art, you're teaching math, you're teaching geometry, you're teaching, you know, colors, so many things that you're teaching through the arts, language. It's a lot. So I don't see it like that, and I don't have a problem just adding adding that piece. Again, the purpose of this is to kind of rename our schools, to tell people what's going on inside of the schools. There was somebody in the community who works for the district, and she said, I never knew that so many arts involved in there. You know, it was new to her. So just like it's new to an employee, it is new to many other people who pass by and choose to take their kids out of the district because they think, you know, Palo Alto gives them more arts, and I want my kid to learn art. So it's just my thinking.
Would the compromise be to keep the formal name as is, but use all marketing and branding material that says Castaño School of the Arts, so that we now start making it a part of the theme and the language we use to talk about Castaño, but it can still remain formally? But that doesn't mean that our brochures and our flyers and our branding can't say School of the Arts, right? I think that might be a compromise. That way, when and if, unfortunately that were to happen, that it weren't to maintain, maybe it's a School of the Sciences, I don't know what it would become one day, then there's flexibility without while still being able to preserve the name and not having to go through this process. I do like us to continue to explore how we can make it known as School of the Arts, Trustee Gaona. And I don't think, even though it's formally named Castaño School, once again, I don't think that prevents us from branding it School of the Arts.
But how we're keeping it quiet. We're keeping it quiet.
Let's not keep it quiet.
And
Yeah.
that's the problem. That's the problem.
Yeah. So does the board agree that maybe that's a compromise of giving the direction of we want it to be referenced to School of Arts and have that kind of become part of the language, while formally keeping? Yes, Trustee Fitch?
Yeah, to the chair. That's a compromise I could get on board with. I was gonna say that, you know, you want to name it School of the Arts to make it continue to be the School of the Arts. You know, like give it that name so it stays a foundational part of that school, and so it doesn't go away in 7-10 years or whatever. But I can definitely get on board with just leaving it Castaño and branding it School of the Arts. And then we have a speaker that popped up.
Is it a new speaker?
Yes.
Okay.
Daniel Ibarra, you can speak. Oops. Yeah, unmute and you can speak. Daniel?
All right. Do we not have them?
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on.
Danielle, you need to unmute yourself. I think he just disappeared.
Yeah, he's gone.
Okay, so it seems like we all kind of came around an idea here. So we can take action tonight with what we discuss. And if there are no more discussion from the board, I can entertain motion, just somebody has to be very particular about how they make the motion. We can't hear you, Trustee Wilson.
Sorry. Okay, now?
Yes.
So I'll take a stab at it. I'll just say that the recommendation is to retain the names of the school campuses as they are currently. Belhaven and Castaño.
Right. And work on branding Castaño School of the Arts.
Well, no.
I know.
Okay. I like the idea of branding. I think that that's a very good compromise, actually, because it is a way that you brand it. Yeah.
All right. So do we?
That's my motion.
Okay.
I'll second that motion to maintain the names or retain the names, the current names of the schools.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
President Polito.
Aye.
Vice President Wilson.
Aye.
Trustee Fitch.
Aye.
Trustee Guyona.
No.
Trustee Shabomaheen.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. And I just want to remind people, when the 49ers Academy was at Castaño, everyone thought the name of the school was the Castaño 49ers Academy, and that was never the formal name. That was just all their marketing and branding tied the names together. So it's really up to us to make it an emphasis to highlight that it's a school of the arts, and I think we can do it just in the way that we branded it with 49ers Academy, even though technically that wasn't its name. And then let's just make sure we circle back with the donations that were made in Jose Ibarra's name. There was money contributed, and I think that we also have to be accountable to the donors and
absolutely
accountable to what we said we were going to do to figure out a way to honor his memory and the work that he did. All right, board, thank you very much. We are at the end of our meeting. So I will adjourn our last meeting before the new school year. Oh, wait, yes, Trustee Gana.
No, I'm saying yeah.
Oh.
I have a break.
Got it. I will adjourn the last board meeting before the new school year at 9:36 p.m. Congratulations, we got through.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Yes, bye.
Stay healthy. Stay safe.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Will. Thanks, Tony, team, Jen, Cindy.
I feel like we're going to be meeting next month, just in a minute anyway, or a couple weeks. Bye, y'all. Have a good night.
Bye, Tam. Thanks. See you guys in a minute. Thank you, Abby.
Thank you, Abby and Eden.